just when you thought it was safe to put on your headphones? You entered the darkest, wildest, sexiest depths of technology. And here to keep you on the bleeding edge of science, tech, and ethics is the Rated R radio star, the man of tomorrow, the golden stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He has a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
Wait for it. It is time for that good old-fashioned, well, hell, this ain't old-fashioned, for that good old sovereign tech, though, baby. It is I, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the Rated R radio star, the man that some call, in fact, the person that's in this room with me right now says, that boy is a little bit different. And, of course, I am talking about the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and she sure as hell was talking about me last night. And it was, that's all I'm going to say about it. Because, well, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Hi. What an introduction. Yes, that is a true story. I did, in fact, say that if I were to describe you to somebody who was totally new and I just had to sum you up in a trite little phrase, I would say, boy, that Brian Sovryn, he's a little something different.
I love it. And I'll tell you, just coming off, boy, what did this gal say? I'm assuming it's a gal. It's on YouTube.
Well, you can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. Right. I don't know if it's a gal.
Well, it was Little Anarchia, so I'm kind of guessing that's a gal. It said, have any of you, this is on my, actually it was my YouTube video about egoism. And it said, have any of you ever seen Brian Sovryn before, let alone listen to him? I think he's the sexiest man alive, and I don't even like men. What am I going to do about that?
That's a great description of you, too. I mean, you are one of those guys that women and men and people who don't normally like men, but they like you.
I'll tell you, I had a gal say, it's like, she didn't like men, but she wanted to kiss me, like, so bad. In fact, that was pretty recent.
I mean, I don't blame her.
Hey.
I would say that I am one of those people that's clinging by a thread to heterosexuality. Like, I barely like men. There's a few, as we'll probably discuss a little later on in the show.
Somebody's been talking about Wolfie.
There's a few. But for the most part, I prefer women. But I love you, Brian. And, I mean, I just think you're a wonderful person. And
it's getting hot in here.
I would say you're very, very sexy.
Woo!
Especially for a man.
Hey, all right.
I could have written that comment, but I actually didn't write that comment.
I thought you were Little Anarchia.
I was wondering who wrote that.
I don't know.
I don't comment on YouTube videos. I'll
Yeah.
watch them, but I don't think I've ever left a comment.
I don't comment on them ever either.
No, I mean, the comment sections can be kind of toxic.
Right.
I think if I was posting YouTube videos, I would just be cringing and not reading the comments. But, sometimes there's funny ones that get voted up.
Sure. Well, I'll tell you, it's getting hot in here, and that one might have gotten a few votes up. I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much. And of course, I love you too. So, now.
Well, it is getting hot in the studio, but we have a remedy for that, don't we?
We do. Yeah, actually,
there's something is going to be done about this.
Yeah. So here's the thing. All right. So, for time constraints and everything, like, I'm not going to run the intros. Okay, this week, the brand new intros. I know people are like, oh, come on, we want them. You're going to get them. Don't worry.
They're worth the wait.
But what we're going to do, and unfortunately people can't necessarily see this, and I don't think we could really, I mean, we could take pictures and I could fuzz shit out or whatever, but every segment, Stephanie and I are going to be taking one article of clothing off each segment. It's just going to get hotter and hotter in here.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be playing a little strip sovereign tech.
Oh, man, this is going to get good. And you know what? It's terrible. I already have, I'm not even wearing pants. All I have is on, or my
Yeah, we're
my
not
briefs.
Wearing much right now, but it's what little we have is going to come off.
So by the end of the show, we'll be doing this nude. I'm not exact. I mean, you'll kind of have to take our word for us, but I like to think we're people of our word. So there you go. Imagine that how you will, folks. Woo. But anyway.
Well, can I just start off by saying,
please.
I'm so excited that you asked me to be on the show tonight because, we were going grocery shopping earlier today. It's like a mundane, Saturday weekend doing our little errands and
yes.
stuff. And, we parked in the parking lot of the grocery store. And I said, so what are you going to talk about on your show tonight, Brian? And you turned to me and you said, would you like to be on the show with me? And I said, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Yes, I would like to be on the show with you. And it's something we could do together. And it will be a fun Saturday night.
I'll tell you, there's only speaking of a rare amount of people, I mean, I can think of maybe 4 people that I would ask to be on this show. You're certainly one of them.
Thank you.
I mean, absolutely. And you're always the first one, of course. I'm not taking away any of the specialness, no doubt. So anyway, whew. Well, speaking of something special, before we get into some of our the foreplay, even though, boy, I'm already feeling
feeling lubed up.
PorcFest this year. This is PorcFest.com. That's PORC as in porcupine. PorcFest.com. If you want to get tickets for this, I think they're $80. So that might be
I thought it was $100.
I think it's 80, but it's around there. So, but anyway, you and I will be there for some of it. Now, I was originally just going to be giving, a main talk on the main pavilion stage on Friday. I think that's the 23rd of the event. The event is from June 21st to June 25th, 2017, obviously this year. And on the 23rd, I at 3 p.m., I'm going to be giving my talk about reclaiming privacy in a mobile world. And in fact, I have some interesting points I might bring up during that, because now, if people listen to Patreon, the Google I/O review I did on Patreon this week, Google is now an AI first company, not a mobile first company. I also think Microsoft's heading in that direction. And so with that in mind, how much does mobile even matter? Right. I mean, anyway, we'll talk about that during that talk as well. But after the fact, from 4 to 5, I will be doing a workshop, and you're actually going to be helping out with that, Stephanie. You're going to be...
I'll be one of the helpers, along with Pixel.
Yep, along with
your
Pixel.
Your favorite ladies of Sovryn Tech.
Absolutely.
In the flesh, helping out.
Yeah, Paige Peterson and you will be there to help people get stuff installed,
help people get their phones
things into
secured.
shape. Yeah.
So I think that's a great way to be at PorcFest.
How could you not want to attend that?
Yeah. There might even be... Are you going to do a live Sovryn Tech? We haven't figured that out.
I haven't totally figured that out yet. So
I will say this. If you like Sovryn Tech and you also listen to our podcast that we do together, Sex and Science Hour,
right?
Then if there's going to be a live Sovryn Tech at PorcFest, there might as well be a live Sex and Science Hour. We just haven't figured out whether we're going to do that yet.
Right.
So we'll keep you posted, of course.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I think next week we will be restarting Sex and Science Hour.
Week after next.
Okay. All right. Just so people know. But to soothe.
We're on our season break right now.
Yeah, but just to soothe everybody's expectations, here you've been on, actually, boy, in the past 4 episodes, you've been on 3 of them, I think. Something along those lines.
3 out of 4 ain't bad.
Hey, all right. But anyway, I will also, just to add on to at PorcFest, on Thursday at noon, I will be, I don't know, it has a bunch of different names now. I don't think it's just called Alt Expo. I think now it's called, I can't think of it. What's
really?
that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, what's that country where they tell you to go when you're an anarchist? Somalia. I think they call it Somalia Fest or something now. I don't know. But anyway.
Okay.
There's always Alt Expo, which is a lot of fun, which I've actually spoken at Alt Expo, which is like an interior event within the event itself, within PorcFest itself. I've spoken at that in years past, and I will be speaking again, actually on Thursday, which I guess would be the 22nd, at noon for Alt Expo, and it'll be about mesh networking, I believe. And Paige Peterson will also be talking for that. So that's something else you're going to want to catch. So
AKA Pixel.
AKA Pixel. So there's a lot of great shit to be catching there, and there might be some live shows. I mean, you don't know what's going to be happening at PorcFest this year. But I know for quite a few people, I mean, a lot of people, relatively, this is going to be quite a draw. Seeing the Golden Stallion live and in color, baby. And I can't wait to do it. So it's, certainly an honor for me. So anyway, enough about that with PorcFest. The other thing I want to mention is that for patrons only, and I've got more patrons this week. I'm honored by that. But if you're a Patreon patron of Sovryn Tech, and again, all we ask is $1 a month. I mean, some people do a whole hell of a lot more than that. And I love, I'm so honored by that. But all we ask is $1 a month. You get access to hundreds of hours of content. And tomorrow, that being, that would be May 28th. May 28th, will be a live hangout Q&A, totally live video, the whole thing. You can ask me questions right on the go, no editing whatsoever. It's just going to be a straight shoot. And that's going to be a great time. So tomorrow, Sunday, if you're not doing anything with family or waving some kind of ridiculous flag, then, come on and come on board at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And when you become a patron, if you're not a patron yet, when you become a patron, you'll get the post that'll have the links for you to be able to be a part of it. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic time. And then like a couple days later, because I needed to do 2 for May, there's going to be another live Q&A hangout. So if you can't catch the one on Sunday, there's going to be another one. You just want to keep an eye on Patreon. Look for those Patreon posts from Sovryn Tech, and you'll find out when the next one is. So, and it'll probably be around the same time, 4 or 5 p.m., something like that. But yeah, Sunday, the 28th, that's, probably the day that you're listening to this, because this is going to get released later at night on Saturday when I normally release Sovryn Tech. But I'll be there. Woo! I'll be there. I'm not Michael Bolton. Wish I was. So, I don't know. Do you wish I was Michael Bolton?
No.
Okay.
I wish you were you. I like you as you are.
All right, perfect.
Nothing against Michael Bolton.
Yeah, nothing against Michael Bolton's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Oh, man.
Loved his Valentine's Day special.
That was incredible. Did we ever review that?
I don't know if we did. I don't think we did.
But that
we mentioned it briefly. But...
yeah, I think we mentioned it because that was great. He did a Valentine's Day special for Netflix on Netflix only. I wish it would get released on Blu-ray or something. Not to say I don't have a 4K copy of it, but it was so good. It was just hilarious and sexy at the same time. So anyway, why don't we break into the foreplay? Why don't we get into some of these stories?
Let's do it.
Yeah, and then we got a hell of a lead story that we'll be getting into, and lots of great stuff to talk about. So anyway, an irony here, and I didn't really plan this. A lot of a lot of the stories that I planned to talk about this week, I actually planned not realizing you'd be on the show, but it's ironic because this story is somewhat relevant to one of the last times that you were on the show, which it was some time ago. It wasn't one of the recent appearances, but it has to do with universal basic income. So, and you were on the episode with me, and I could sum this up a bit, but I think it's safe for me to say that you're not supportive of UBI, of universal basic income. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah, you're not supportive.
No.
Right. Okay. Yeah, me neither. I really don't see it. I see it, just in brief, I see it as a incremental step that is meaningless. Like you don't even have to take that step, I think, to get to where, maybe some people want to go, whatever that ends up looking like. But anyway, this is kind of a response to, or an update, I guess, on a theory that I have held for some time. And of course, I've been filling your ear with for some time now, which is that Mark Zuckerberg, I think, is running for president. Now there's a lot of people talking about this, and there's people saying, it actually might even be The Rock. It might be Dwayne Johnson that's going to run, and it's going to be between, The Rock and Mark Zuckerberg in 2020. People are serious about
that
this.
One yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so for people who aren't familiar, I know your theory about why you think Mark Zuckerberg is going to try to run for president of the U.S. in 2020. But for people who are not in the know, briefly lay it out.
Ooh, okay,
What's
briefly.
the evidence that he's planning a presidential run?
Well, the short version of it is that he has set up the way that he did the recent C round of selling shares allows him to run for political office and still be in control of Facebook for one. He will be 35 in 2020, like literally a month.
Just making the cutoff for the age that you have to be.
Right, to run for president, like by a month. It's amazing how close it is. He has recently, he's on a tour of all the states in the United States that he's never visited before. Right now, he's doing that right now this summer. And also, let's see, what was the other bit? Oh yeah, he changed his mind on, like, he's an atheist, or he was an atheist. Now he says, oh yeah, but I understand spirituality and all that. Like, I kind of get it. So he softened on his atheism, which that's another thing. You're never going to get elected if you don't have some kind of respect for God. And I'm sure he'd be happy to, claim anything.
And really, why would you want to go to Wyoming or Idaho if you weren't running for president?
Yeah, really. Well, yeah. So
I think that's kind of compelling. It seems like there's a lot of smoke and there could be fire.
Yeah, I think there's some other aspects too. Those are kind of the larger ones, but there's more like Well, the relations with China are not very good with Trump in office, and I think that's something that Mark Zuckerberg could uniquely, assuage. And that being, it's almost like a situation only Nixon could go to China. Well, only Zuckerberg could go to China, and he has, and they love him there. So that's,
and his wife is Chinese, right?
Yeah. So he can speak it. He can speak Mandarin fairly well. There's a lot of good evidence, going as far as with that. Now, when I talked about this on a recent episode of Sovryn Tech, and this is before, now everybody's talking about it like he's going to be running for president. I was saying it well before everybody was on board with this.
Yeah, that's true. You were saying it before.
Right.
It started becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, exactly. So, but now one thing I said was that, and I said, I'll tell you, this is something he's going to do, is he's going to have UBI, Universal Basic Income, be part of his platform, part of his campaign. And he was just giving a commencement speech at Harvard just this past Thursday. And at the commencement speech, he said, let's see if I've got the words right here. Quote, as our technology keeps on evolving, we need a society that is more focused on providing continuous education through our lives, end quote. I'll keep quoting. Quote, and yes, giving everyone the freedom to pursue purpose isn't going to be free. People like me should pay for it. And a lot of you are going to do really well, and you should too. And there's a lot more in there, but the bottom line is that he was really making a case for universal basic income, or what sounded to a lot of people like he's saying, yeah, there needs to be this basic income that just everybody's going to get. So that way they have this baseline, they can eat, they can, have a place to live, and then that way they can go and pursue their dreams. And so I just find it interesting. I said this, and this is something nobody else was reporting on, that he would talk about UBI. I got this. The reason I thought that he was going to run off of UBI, first off, is a lot of Silicon Valley is talking about UBI needing to be a thing. Second off is that he read a book last year, which was the first book of the Culture series by Ian M. Banks, which is all about this post-scarcity kind of, socialist anarchist kind of paradise,
world.
Yeah, in space. And they're great books. I love them. And it's one of the rare cases of best-selling anarchist fiction out there, just in the world entirely, outside of Ursula K. Le Guin and some others. But
it's not gold and black anarchism.
No, it's certainly not that. It's not yellow and black, but that's, yellow's the color of cowardice, but sorry. I think you're better off when you said gold, but okay. Yeah, so Zuckerberg, that's all I was basing my, it was just, okay, he has these 2 points going for him, being in Silicon Valley, and he talked about this book, and he made it like a really big deal that I read this book. Everybody else should read this book. And it makes me think, yeah, he's shooting for kind of this pseudo post-scarcity situation, and I think he'll make it part of his platform. Will he ever actually make it happen, even if he wins the presidency? I doubt it, but...
Why do you think Silicon Valley wants universal basic income?
I think because all right, that's a great question. I think a lot of the tech giants, shall we say, in Silicon Valley, they clearly have big plans, and everybody realizes that they have some kind of end game, some kind of big plan end game, but they just won't tell us what it is. Okay. And that's why they don't do anything about products that they release right now. Okay, products and services and apps, whatever those may be it a search engine, whatever the hell, okay, that fail hard. But they won't tell any, like they don't do anything about it. The reason they don't do anything about it is that these services are going to get better over time. Okay?
What do you mean they don't do anything about it? What would they do if an app failed?
They don't address it. Like Apple never tells anybody, yeah, we know, they never come out and say, we know Siri sucks, we're going to try and fix that for you. They know that the steps that a lot of these services are at, okay, be it the virtual assistants or whatever, they're at kind of their learning stage, in that this is just a point that they've got to get past. And a lot of these technologies that don't interact very well, like Google Home doesn't interact perfectly well with Google Search, or whatever the ecosystem is that doesn't seem to just work very well, but they just keep on pushing it, even though for years nothing really delivers on what they're talking about, is because they have some kind of end game where things have to be the way they are right now. before they can get to this, whatever this
they realize
perfect
it's
magic
a stepping
point
stone
is
to
supposed to be.
something bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Now, some people want to say it's artificial intelligence. I mean, that's a whole other conversation as far as what that is. But that's the thing, is that most tech journalists that I listen to now, they all recognize this. I've known this for a while, and I was like, I wish these companies would just come out and say what the fuck they're doing. What's the end goal? Like what is your end game? What are you trying to actually build? And they won't do it. And that's why everything they do looks so stupid.
Okay, so how do you think that happened? Why are they all sort of marching toward this technocratic, centrally planned society or whatever?
Well, that's a guess that's what they're going for. But
what else could it be?
I don't know. That's the thing. I just wish they would tell us. But I think it might be something like so outlandish, so ridiculous, and probably so
that
unpalatable
they can't tell people?
that they won't tell people. Yeah. Because,
but how does that get orchestrated? Is it just something that every computer science student learns in school, or every business student kind of learns in like a unconscious way in school, and then that's when they get to be like a CEO, like driving a company, that's where they end up going? Or do they have like literal meetings and parties where they're like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could basically like read people's minds with technology and know what they're going to buy and influence their feelings and thoughts?
Oh, I think they have those parties. I think they have those gatherings. I mean, there's a place called the Battery, which honestly, anybody that goes to the Battery, I wouldn't trust them for a fucking lick. Like I'd be.
What's the Battery?
It's like a club in Silicon Valley,
in San Francisco.
Yeah, that people you like. It's invite only that you get into, and supposedly the biggest conversations in the world kind of happen in this place. And I just don't trust anybody that wants to fucking go in that place. I mean, because these guys, well, I mean, there was
like Bohemian Grove.
Well, it's weird. I mean, financial.
So it's basically the Bohemian Grove of Silicon Valley.
Yeah, but it's real. I mean, Bohemian Grove to a degree is real too, right?
Bohemian Grove is real too.
Sure, but I don't. Well, that's another conversation.
I mean, I don't doubt that there are like backroom deals and like smoky, dark rooms and stuff where meetings take place, but I don't know. It just seems so like anytime you allege that there's kind of a conspiracy going on, it's like, okay, well, a conspiracy requires a lot of people to all be in on it. And the more people you bring in on something, the harder it is to keep secret. So what's the evidence that this is really going on and that all these people are keeping it a secret?
Okay, well, so you have this part of it. I mean, each one of these guys or each one of the tech giants pretty much has a skunkworks division of some kind. Okay, they have.
What's skunkworks?
Skunkworks means like a secret lab where they develop like wild shit. Okay. And that's not conspiracy theory, because eventually it comes out. Like, who knew the Amazon Echo was getting developed? Nobody had a fucking clue that Labs 123 was developing the Amazon Echo. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it comes out and suddenly everybody, jumps on top of it. Okay. But the Financial Times, Larry Page was saying, why can't we have a future where houses cost, like practically nothing? Like he laid out this entire post-scarcity future, the idea of Google cities, literal Google run cities. I mean, there's patents for this, it's not conspiracy theory. It's just, they won't tell you that like what it all eventually is end up going to be looking like. And I'm trying to think how we got started on this whole conversation.
Because
you asked a great question.
Zuckerberg wants universal basic income, but why does Silicon Valley want it?
Right. So there's some kind of end game that they have in mind. They know that they're automating the shit out of everything and that there won't be jobs. Okay. And now, I mean, the retort to that is that, well, during the industrial age, people made the same claim that everybody, the basket weaver is going to be out of a job or something, but the basket weaver ended up with a job anyway.
Yeah, just a different job.
Just a different kind of job. And, okay, maybe. I mean, there are definitely sectors that are going to disappear. And I mean, there are entire job, like things that, the big one that I mentioned to a lot of people is that, yeah, I think and in fact, a lot of some truck drivers that I've heard from, or, kind of hearsay to some degree, said that, they know that their jobs are coming to an end and they don't mind. Okay. But here's the thing. When the truck driver industry goes out, that's not the only thing that goes out. Sirius XM goes out, right? Because who's the number one people that listen to radio all fucking day long? Truck drivers.
Yeah.
They're the ones that call in. I mean, like, it's a funny thing. Like, I listen to Sirius. I love Sirius XM. I listen to it often. And I'm always wondering, I'm like, why is it always these like Southern guys that are constantly calling into like these metal shows or something? Like, I don't know that many, Southern dudes that listen to metal, and I lived in the South for a while.
When we did talk radio, we were on a show that was on the radio, and it was on Sirius at one point, and we would get so many truckers calling in.
Yeah,
so I believe that's true.
And I'm not saying every Southerner's a trucker or that every trucker's a Southerner. I'm just saying that, there are numbers to, to back up like that. That's a thing.
Sure.
But
I mean, they listen to Sirius at gyms and stuff too. And like any job where you're kind of like not having to talk to anybody.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those subscriptions are going to disappear. I mean, like there's whole sectors that you just don't know that are going to get affected. I mean, it's the nature of the beast,
Yeah, but isn't the economy always changing like that? And people find different jobs. I mean, if they get displaced, it sucks. It's painful,
the counter
but
argument.
They end up finding something different.
Right, that's the counter argument. But for whatever reason, Silicon Valley either doesn't know what those jobs are, or they have some kind of insights, whether they would end up being the reality or not, that makes them think that UBI needs to be a thing.
See, I just think maybe it has something to do with the cost of housing in San Francisco, which is so high largely because of regulations that the city has imposed and the artificial sort of scarcity of housing in that area. I think the tech companies can't afford to pay people to live where they want to be and work. Yeah, and so they want somebody else to pay for their basic living costs. Yeah,
but then just lobby San Francisco. Like, don't spend the money lobbying the entire country. That's
yeah, but I don't know. They might think that San Francisco would never do that unless everybody did it. Because if you think about it, if San Francisco did do that, then everyone would just try to move to San Francisco. So you have to have it everywhere, or else there's a migration problem too. I
don't know if it's just San Francisco. Because especially since so much of these companies rely upon growth, I have a hard time believing any of these companies don't want the world to be one giant fucking city.
They probably do want that. But, I mean, are they going to get their wish? I don't know. But, I mean, I think you're making an interesting point, and I don't completely disagree that I think it's totally possible that Silicon Valley wants UBI by and large. A lot of the people, the movers and shakers, they think it would be a great thing if everybody got paid by the government just for being alive.
Yeah, I mean, they're making the open case for the nation. They're not just talking one area. Like, I mean, you can look up the articles written by the bigwigs in Silicon Valley. I mean, and they're not just talking one area. But please continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I was just sort of trying to ask about the motivations for that. Like, why do you think they really want that? And we've both sort of ventured a guess about why. Mm-hmm. So unless you have any other reasons, we can move on. But I just thought that was kind of interesting. So, okay, well, we've predicted it now. It's 2017.
Yeah.
27th.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm right. Like, I mean, this is just another feather in the cap of Zuckerberg running for president, I think. It's the start of his platform. And this is something that I said, and I know I more or less alone said. I mean, it was a safe guess, certainly, but that would be directly a part of his platform going forward. And, it's a possibility that this is just adding on to that ethos. Yeah,
I mean, and it's really interesting because I think the setup is really nice. It's looking really nice anyway. We've had Trump, got elected. And so now people who were witnessing that say, okay, so a political outsider who's never held office before can get elected. Okay, That's one point. And then, we don't know what Trump's going to do with his presidency, but some people think he's going to, basically weaken or fuck up relations with China somehow. So you have that angle, right? Where Zuckerberg could come in and swoop to the rescue on that. And then, but Trump is seen as being supported by these like white, rural, less educated kind of people. And there's this narrative out there, whether it's true or not, that he got elected by people who were kind of like rednecks, like backwater kind of people and uneducated, right?
Sure.
And Zuckerberg represents the chance for the young people and the liberal elites to strike back at that backwater conservatism that elected Trump. And say, you can elect a political outsider, so can we. And guess who it is? It's Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
So I think I'm concerned about that setup because I don't want the person who's in charge of the biggest surveillance apparatus there is on the whole world also in charge of the biggest war machine there is.
No, I totally agree with you. And, actually, you're bringing to mind for me something that I hadn't really necessarily like put this part together. So, but there's a lot of so shall we say Silicon Valley veterans that are running for office. Brianna Wu, I think, is running for senator or some kind of political office in Massachusetts.
Wow.
Brianna Wu, of course, is famous for Gamergate.
Yeah.
And
I don't even know what she did in Gamergate.
Well, she's a game developer, among other things. But I mean, she's a voice out there. And Jason Calacanis is running for office as well. I think there's a couple guys running in Texas. Like, I could probably like rattle off some odd 30 names of Silicon Valley veterans, I'll call them that are all running for office in the next year or two, or potentially 2020 with Zuckerberg and for the presidency. Because I mean, right, that's the president needs is, to have a degree of control over, say, the House or something like that. I mean, yeah. So if you've got a generation of people that are going to vote in all these, Silicon Valley
tech people,
all the,
yeah, that's scary. The one thing that didn't scare me about all the tech people in the past was that they didn't really have political power. The only power they had was what they could code, which
some people would say is a greater power, but yeah, continue.
Well, yeah, in some ways it is, but if you have both, that's an imbalance of power.
Oh, yeah.
And imbalances like that breed abuse and corruption. Sure.
And I should bring that point up again, is that my number one concern, particularly with Zuckerberg, like, oh, what if Zuckerberg does end up becoming president? Isn't that better than Trump? You're talking about a guy who owns the ultimate surveillance system in the world, that being Facebook. And he would no longer, because he would still be CEO of Facebook, he wouldn't need warrants. He wouldn't need to go through any kind of, judicial process or something to get access to information about literally billions of people. And that's
personal information.
Right.
And that's put on Facebook.
Exactly. And that's fucking terrifying. In fact, a number that I want to get at some point is, I'd love to find out what the percentage of people that actually use Facebook Messenger, but use the end-to-end encryption on Facebook Messenger, because it does have the Signal protocol built into it. But I bet you good money a lot of people don't use that. A lot of people probably still use Signal. I'm not saying people are being stupid. I'm just saying I don't think that if you're using Messenger, which a lot of people do, they're probably not end-to-end encrypting that, because the Signal end-to-end encryption that you can put in with Messenger, does hide it from Facebook as well. Of course, they're still collecting metadata, but yeah, I bet there's not a lot of people using that. So, and that's, of course, then it's even a question of how well did they implement the Signal protocol, because even, Moxie Marlin Spike, the creator of the Signal protocol, and head of Open Whisper Systems and all that, pretty much anytime somebody's used the Signal protocol for their app outside of the actual Signal app, he's usually used the statement that it's a good implementation or something like that. Like, it seems like very cautious language saying, it's not perfect. But you raise an interesting, I'm glad we had this conversation. We didn't plan on this, but this is a doozy of a thing to talk about. Now, I know I have listeners who are supportive of UBI, or who are very supportive of UBI. And well, again, we did an episode where we talked about it and said how, unfeasible it is. And also, again, and I know there's listeners who feel the same way, that it's really kind of an unnecessary step, let's get to a future, where the market's, really rocking and automation and all this different stuff's going on. You don't need UBI to get there. So yeah,
exactly.
Anyway, did you have any more comments on that? Otherwise, I got one more thing I want to get in, then we can get into our lead story.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had some other stuff I wanted to talk about, but I'll save it for next week. That's fine. The one thing I wanted to make sure that people knew about, and this could easily fit into HackSec, but that'll be later in the show, is I do want you to go and update your media player. Your media players, like if you use VLC, which that's a very popular one. You use VLC,
yeah,
Stephanie?
And I did update it.
Right on. Popcorn Time, Kodi, which is exceptionally popular. We might talk about Kodi and Facebook a little bit later, so that's something. Media Player Classic, I don't exactly know if that was affected, but make sure you're using the latest version of that. Streamio, any of those, make sure you update it, because what was discovered, there was actually a security team called Checkpoint, that they discovered that through subtitle files, you could download, say from if you're going to a torrent site or something, and you downloaded a movie and you wanted to use a subtitle file, or if you downloaded a movie but you wanted to find a subtitle file that maybe like the Blu-ray never came with, and so this is something extra that you you wanted your grandma to watch something in Polish or something, because she only speaks Polska, then fine, okay. And you go and find it, and then you download it. That subtitle file could actually inject malware onto your system. So all across the board, make sure. Now, the instant that this was released, literally within hours, I know for VLC, which is my personal favorite, they had a new version released that patched this subtitle, injection, right up. And so I just want to make sure everybody's doing that. I posted it on social media. It was found out a couple days ago. I posted about it instantly. But you want to make sure that if you didn't do it then, fucking do it now. Okay. Cause it could be bad. And it's a shame too, because I never thought about it, but yeah, the system treats subtitle files just like it's some kind of text file. It doesn't bother to think if it's something else. And because the subtitle file sits separately from the app, I could see where it has the potential to kind of break out of the sandbox, because that's kind of the nice thing about VLC is that largely, at least its codecs and a lot of the important aspects of it are sandboxed. If you run a WMV file, this used to be a popular thing years ago, where you download porn and the porn would be a WMV file. The thing is the reason it was a WMV file is because that would open up Windows Media Player, which, has really deep access in, the Windows operating system. And so, it would put a virus or something onto your system. And so that's why I've always,
it's
for
always
literally
how they get you with the porn.
Exactly. And that's why for a decade I've said, look, just use VLC because it's largely sandboxed. There's a lot of aspects of it that aren't tied into the operating system so much. And it has its own codecs built into the media player itself. So that's not a problem. But in this case, it's really reaching outward and then injecting. I could see where that little bit of security wouldn't fit the bill this time. But again, just update it, with VLC or Kodi or Popcorn Time, whatever one you're using, and you really, you should be okay.
Is it paranoid to suggest that maybe you should have just a dedicated machine or something that you use if you're going to download movies or porn or subtitle files or whatever that you don't do anything else on?
Well, with computers, there's no such thing as too paranoid, in my opinion. As far as you want to go that fucking distance, because, it's all up to you. There's only not being careful enough in the PC or, in the tech world, in my opinion. So you can't be too paranoid. This is something I recommend similarly with games. I tell people, look, I use Windows, you use Windows, but my important stuff, if it's life or death stuff, I sure as hell don't rely on anything on Windows, and so, yeah, I'd love it if everybody's using Linux or BSD using a different system, right? But there's one thing that certainly is important to me that you kind of can't do on those systems, and that's gaming. At least a lot of games. Yeah, there's some games on there, and it's getting better than it was years ago. But right now, still, the ultimate gaming system, console or not, is Windows. Is Windows 10, particularly. And I've been telling people forever. I said, look, just have two computers. Have a Linux machine where you do all, where you log into accounts, and that includes your Google account, whatever, and have just a dumb Windows computer that doesn't log into any accounts, just doesn't do any of that other than maybe your Steam account or something, or your GOG account or whatever, and have that be your gaming machine. But it's just a dumb computer. You don't do anything else other than gaming on it. Or like you said, Stephanie, you watch movies on it, or you do your torrenting or something like that.
Or a porn computer.
Yeah, have it be a porn computer, whatever. But have it be a computer like that just, you're very, very particular. It'd be great if it's like a desktop and you actually had access, like you had a connected hardwire, with Ethernet, and you could pull the Ethernet cord whenever you're not using it. That way you're making fucking sure that this baby's not connected to the network when you're doing something you're not sure about, whatever. So, no, I think that, having multiple machines, considering how inexpensive a lot of computers are today, I think it's a totally viable, wonderful thing to do for your security. So that's not a bad suggestion at all, Stephanie. I think that's a very good one. So anyway, we'll be right back with we're going to get into our story of the week.
Speaking
Go
of
ahead.
that, it's getting kind of hot in the studio.
Oh, it's getting hot.
When the first break was
We better take some stuff off.
We have to pay our teas.
Woo! All right.
One article of clothing will be lost during this break.
We'll be right back. Woo! Hey, I want to tell you about something that excites the shit out of me. And that is, now, I don't know about you. Actually, Stephanie, I know about you. Don't answer this. Do you love Star Wars? Stephanie, don't answer. Well, go ahead, tell them.
That's the sound of my lips being zipped.
Well, I love Star Wars. and also, but how about this, Stephanie? Do you love liberty? Do you love personal freedom?
Yes,
Absolutely.
I sure do.
Damn right you do. So do I. So if you love Star Wars and you love liberty, baby, I want you to check out the Resist the Empire podcast. This podcast is so fucking cool. You have no idea. In fact, I don't just want you to listen to the episodes. You're going to love the episodes. Okay. You're going to get the latest news. You're going to get the, great breakdowns on everything that's going on. You're going to get I love when they break each episode, they do one character, one Star Wars character, and they do like the smallest or the galaxy's smallest political quiz where they what exactly is this character? Like, is Darth Vader, really just this tyrannical asshole, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's really, really something, just a lot of fun to listen to. And, you want to, don't just listen to it. Follow them on social media, being on Facebook, wherever. The memes that they do, I talk about this all the time. I am dying every time I see one. They are so funny. They are so spot on. It's amazing. The Star Wars universe is so huge. It's so cool to have that really that liberty perspective on Star Wars itself, and to hear it from, really, really knowledgeable cats, which the guys over at Resist the Empire podcast are. So go to the resisttheempirepodcast.com. That's the website. Get listening to this. There are quite a few episodes in. It's a great time. I even get name dropped here and there. I love it. So, and I appreciate them sponsoring Sovryn Tech, because they know my audience. I mean, hell, I do whole episodes dedicated to Star Wars. I mean, come on, my audience, their audience, it's a match made in somewhere in the celestial heavens. So anyway, resisttheempirepodcast.com. Woo, check it out.
Story of the week.
And we are back. Woo! Now, I am breaking up this show in the segments that it's going to be, but I'm not playing the intros. Don't worry. That's a tease. I guarantee you I'm going to pay. In fact, you know what? Patrons, I'm going to release a little episode where you get to hear them before everybody else does this week.
If that's not an incentive to become a Patreon.
I know.
I don't know what is.
Forget about the live, hangouts, Q&A hangouts. People are going to want that. So if you want to listen to those, you'll be the first ones. And then I absolutely promise you that in episode 228, you're going to get the hookup. Okay. So, because these are so good. Anyway, teases that we got to pay off. Stephanie, we got to start taking it off. Do you want to do the honors first? Woo, here it is. Man,
you have to narrate what I'm doing. Okay. I won't be able to be
her hands are down her pants. Woo. Ooh, she's shaking her ass. Camera. Oh my God. What, are you not wearing underwear? Holy shit. All right, I won't narrate that part on the radio. Wow. Hey, wow. Howard Stern, eat your heart out. Yeah, she is smacking that ass. All right. Okay. All right, now it's getting ridiculous. Take it off. Woo. Holy shit. No underwear. All right. Well, I'm just, there's a naked bottom in this room. So, okay. All right. Now it's my turn. I gotta take off something.
All right.
here.
I'm going to be narrating this one.
Okay. All right. I gotta take the headset off because I
you beat that? I played the butt bongos. Come on.
I was going to do, some music or something. I mean, I can't do it.
No, it needs no music.
So I have a drinking problem and I have seltzer all over me. So I'm just going to take my shirt off.
Okay.
That'll be my first article.
I can't wait to take the shirt off.
Taking off the headset here. Okay.
All right. He's taking off his headphones.
All right.
He's standing up.
Okay.
He's he's already lost the pants. Got some underwear on.
I wasn't wearing pants today anyway.
He's taking his arm out of the shirt. Woo! He's revealing his UBI key, which he keeps around his neck. How sexy is ladies? How sexy is that? He's got his UBI key on. He's flexing his muscles. He's in his underwear with a very nice package.
Wow. Okay. I think unless I'm taking off my watch or my glasses, I only have one article of clothing left.
You have three, actually. You have your glasses, your UBI key, and your underwear.
Oh, man, the UBI key doesn't come
on the
off.
other hand, I have my ponytail holder and my shirt.
Your ponytail holder. Oh, it's this bullshit. All right.
Well, the shirt's coming off before the ponytail holder.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
All right. Woo. Well, let's get into our story of the week.
All
now,
right.
and this is going to be going forward like a separate segment. So, that way I can get in more intros and a lot more story and of course, more fun, because that's what it's really all about. But this is going to be kind of this is going to be interesting. Okay. I was debating on where to put all these stories, but I think I'm going to save the actual Facebook stories, which would have been a nice play off of what we were just talking about with Zuck. I'm going to save that for HackSec. So now we're going to talk about, while we're sexying things up here, let's talk about threesomes. Woo!
Oh, cool.
Well, sort of threesomes, even though I'm sure threesomes are going on with this. But this is an interesting story. This is kind of admittedly, this might be a little bit of a stretch to put into Sovryn Tech, but I think it's important. There's actually a huge science angle here that we'll get into. But, this is definitely get into society, okay, and in the future, but things that I've talked about for years. And I'm just I'll read the kind of the headline here from the New York Post. 2 bisexual women and their husband, let's be clear, this is from May 18th, 2017. This is fresh. 2 bisexual women and their husband, love parenting as threesome. Woo! Okay, so let's read a little bit here. Do you have any issues with that title by chance, Stephanie? 2 bisexual women and their husband? No, nothing?
I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Sometimes it takes a little while for it to hit me, but I saw another version of that headline called "Man Becomes a Dad with 2 Women at the Same Time" or something like that.
Oh, making it all about daddy.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, why make him the central point of focus, right? Why isn't it 2 women have kids with a man or something like that?
Right. Yeah. Well, so let's read a little bit of the story here. A man and 2 women who live as a threesome have announced they are expecting a baby and insist that, quote, 3 parents are better than 2, end quote. Woo. Now, Stallion breaking in, that's the point that I have made in the past, okay? Or not necessarily those numbers, but that more parents can only be, or not can only, but may likely be more helpful.
I think, I would agree with that. I would put it a little bit differently. I would say, all things being equal, if there's stability in this in the family situation, and the adults love the child and have their best interests in heart, more parents is better.
Yeah, right.
But you have to have those preconditions of stability and love.
Sure, right. 2 parents can be, if it's 3 parents and they're all, emotionally stunted or something like that, that's a bad situation. But equally, if it's 2 parents that are emotional, and how many are,
Yeah. I think if you had 2 good, loving parents and then, a grandparent or 2 grandparents, for example, also lived in the same household and helped take care of the kid, then it would just be more love for the kid, right?
Exactly. Well, let's talk about that more after
a lot of
we read
people
some
wouldn't
of the story.
Disapprove of that situation, right?
Yeah, if there's a grandmother living in the house, sure.
Yeah.
I grew up at a point where a grandmother was around very much. If not, eventually it turned out to where she was living in the house, and she was like the best adult influence, in my opinion, in for me growing up. And not just for me, for most of my siblings, we all agreed she was the best. Well, I don't want to get into too much personal stuff, but I remember my oldest brother, Wally, saying, you want to know what love is? It's like that woman right there. That was love. That's how serious, so yeah, we were thankful that there was another adult influence.
You had a
in
lot
the
of
house.
siblings too. You're one of 5.
One of 5. Yeah.
It's hard enough just having one child. I can't even imagine 5 with only 2 parents.
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine that? Wow.
Yeah. But we wanted to do was spend time with our grandmother. So, anyway, but let's read on here with the story.
Yeah, I would just say the reason I brought that up was because if you hear this headline or if you start to hear this story and you're having trouble with it, just imagine how it would be different if one of those women was a grandmother instead of a lover.
Sure, right. Or an aunt or uncle, that happened to be staying, nearby. And there's, I can
or
think,
a friend or roommate who wasn't romantically involved with the couple, but they love the child, and it's like their best friend or something.
Right, and I think usually people wouldn't take issue with it. I mean, and that's the point I want to get into here. But anyway, let's read on with the story. Adam Lyons or Lyons? It's Lyons, Lyons. I'll say Lyons.
Say Lyons, yeah.
Adam Lyons was dubbed, quote, the luckiest man alive, end quote, because he shares his life with two girlfriends, Brooke Shed and Jan Shalikova. Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Lyons is already the father of Shed's son, Dante, who's now 2. But now the London-born dad is expecting a baby boy with Shalikova. The threesome, who share a super king-size bed, believe the new baby, who is due in July, that of 2017, will benefit from their setup. Lyons, 36, from East London, said, quote, it's so sweet that we all get to parent and raise the kids together, end quote. Quote, we have talked about it at length, and we all consider ourselves parents to the children. With the kids, our titles are officially Dad, Mom, and Mom, end quote. Quote, for us, 3 definitely works better than 2, end quote. In fact, reading on, the threesome believes that their unusual arrangement could be the future of relationships and parenting. Ooh. Lyons, who runs his own business consulting company, Psychology Hacker, is also stepdad to Shed's son, Oliver, 7, from a previous relationship. He said, quote, oh no, he married a single mother. Sorry, excuse me.
I don't think he cares.
No, I wouldn't either.
She's not single anymore, right?
Damn right. So reading on, quote, so many of our friends are in, quote unquote, normal 2-person couple relationships with kids, jobs, and all the other typical responsibilities, and I see them struggling to juggle their lives. It's difficult with 2 people, end quote. Quote, continuing, but with 3 parents, we always have the ability for one person to look after the kids, and as a result, we never begrudge each other anything because we all have lots of time. With 3 people, it's logistically so much easier to handle all those things. We share out the responsibilities, and it fits our sexual preferences too. When Brooke, Jane, and I, this is Lyons still talking, first came out about our relationship, we had some criticism, and certain people said we wouldn't last. But we've been going for 5 years now. Well, 5 years. What we have is not a fling or a phase. We're a real family with healthy, happy kids. Our son Oliver doesn't even recognize what is unusual about our family. This is, again, Lyons continuing. In fact, there's a great picture here of him and all of them as the Incredibles. That's that superhero family movie from Pixar, right? Anyway, quote, this should be the future of relationships where people are able to enjoy love in any way they feel works. Oh, man. Stallion breaking in. Who the fuck would argue with that? Come on.
Oh, plenty of people would argue with it.
Well, sadly, I think you're right. Well, let me, or do you have something to say on that?
Yeah, no, continue.
I'll finish up his last bit. 3 people and 3 parents make so much sense to us, end quote. Mom-to-be Shalikova, who's 27, says she's never wanted children until she realized how much easier it was with 3 parents. Woo. Shalikova, who also works with Lyons. Yeah. Shalikova, who also works with Lyons in his business consulting company, explained, quote, when I had boyfriends before, I never wanted or cared about kids. Growing up, I always thought that when you had a baby, you became a slave to your child. You see a lot of parents struggling.
Accurate.
Sure.
I feel that way.
I've got a lot to say on this too. Yeah, I mean, I know you do. But raising Dante with Adam and Brooke and watching him grow up with 3 parents around, I realized we could do it as a family. With 3 parents around, it's so doable. With 3 parents, we can still have a social life, make time for one another, and share the parenting tasks so you don't end up like the typical sleep-deprived mom. With 2 parents, there's so much help, and I'll never have to leave my kids with someone I don't trust. End quote. Bisexual Shed, that's the other mom, 28, said, I'm so excited for Jane's pregnancy. I love talking to her bump. I've always wanted 4 sons, so this is a dream come true, end quote. So, I mean, she's accepting. No, this woman's babies, Shalikova's babies, these will be my babies too, which is beautiful. So reading on, quote, I think our good parenting is one of the sexiest things about our relationship. How about, All right. So now let me stop there for a second. So Stephanie, you and I, we don't want to have kids.
Right.
Okay. Of course, I've, kind of made the decision. I mean, I have a vasectomy. So I'm just not doing it.
You've made it official.
Yeah.
You just voted with your vas.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I like to think, I mean, now I've been a parent in the past, not to a biological child, but into, one that I married into, kind of similar to what Lyons did with Ched, the woman Ched there. But, I like to think that as I was a one-time kid, I have some grasp, some understanding, and because I've done research in this, in recent years, on what good parenting is. And you rarely hear people talk about parenting being really sexy, like really it being like a sexy thing, not sexy because it falls into some kind of norm, some societal norm or whatever, but just because this is so great. I love the fact that I'm still me, but yet I get to, fulfill this desire that I have, to bring more life into the world or something like that. And go ahead.
Yeah, I think it could mean that. And I also think it could mean that, well, I don't know about you, Brian, but even though I don't want to have kids, when I see somebody who truly respects and honors children as people, the way I wish I was always treated when I was a kid, and I was sometimes, but not all the time.
Sure.
And I was lucky for the times that I was. But, when I see someone who really gets it and who really treats children as people and human beings and really respects their personhood and just has their best interests at heart in every way, I admire that person. I think that's an incredibly admirable quality in another human being. And then that admiration for that other adult who's being so empathetic and so compassionate towards that little person is a turn on. It draws you to them.
Sure.
It draws you to that person who respects children so much. Because if they respect children, you can tell a lot about a person by the way they treat the most vulnerable people in society.
Sure, absolutely.
And I would say it's definitely it's magnetic when you see someone care for other human beings like that, even little ones like children.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even Captain Picard, a fictional character, of course, certainly, but I love the statement he makes. There's an episode in the 6th season where he says, judge us by how we treat our children. And, because he's dealing with this alien who thinks that all these adults are evil and everything. And it's a great point. Yeah, let's judge how we, let's judge people by how they treat their children. Unfortunately, today, a lot of people treat their children like shit. Okay. I mean, it's not a funny matter. It's terrible. So anyway, we'll circle back to that point here. I'm going to read on a bit more. It's incredible. This is Shed still talking here. It's incredible to see Adam and Jane with the kids and how we share all the responsibilities. We definitely want a few more kids, and I would love to have a wedding to show my commitment to Adam and Jane. All right, whatever. Anyway, reading. Oliver says he would like to get married someday too, and he knows 3 people can be really happy together in a relationship. We're setting a good example. Oliver is... It's a
7-year-old kid.
Right. Now, I mean, here's a key thing, stop on that for a second. Imagine that your kid is seeing this beautiful relationship and oh, I want this too, as to where, I think one of the reasons, cause I've known that I didn't want a kid for a long time. Probably part of the reason, consciously or unconsciously, was that I saw just how, miserable my parents were. Why would you want to copy what they did?
Right.
Why would you want to get married? Why would you want to have kids if all it is everybody yelling at each other and all this different shit, right? If that's what you see. I mean, so there's obviously some good patterns going on here, at least based upon the words that these people are saying. Do you have anything you want to say on that, or I'll read on a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there who think, well, polyamory and multiple person relationships and non-heterosexual relationships and all these things that deviate from the heteronormative monogamous standards, that's all fine and good when you're in your 20s and you're experimenting. But once you actually grow up and once there's kids in the picture, it's a different story, because you can't, exposing children to that stuff is damaging. It's obviously, that stuff is just for perverse pleasure, and you don't want to be damaging your kids' psyches by showing them that people have sex for fun, or that people can have relationships with more than any gender, not just the opposite sex, and people can have relationships with more than one person at the same time, blah blah blah. I've even known there was somebody. It was let's just say I had a personal experience. Somebody I knew was interested in a polyamorous relationship that was not heterosexual.
Okay.
But she didn't go forward with it because she said, well, what am I going to tell my kids? I couldn't imagine coming out to my kids about this.
Yeah.
And she had 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I just think that's it's too bad, because what does it communicate to kids when you have the relationships that you want that make you happy? It communicates that you should be in relationships that make you happy.
Right.
Even if society says that's not the right thing to do or whatever, it communicates to kids that it's possible to have love in different ways than just the, Disney prince and princess.
Yeah.
It communicates to kids that love can take different forms. And I think that's just a fine message. And obviously Oliver is hearing that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So reading on a bit here, Lyons, Shalikova, and Shed all live together on a large plot of land in Austin, Texas, with 2 separate houses, one of which they use as an office and one of which Shed uses as a homeschool, where she plans to teach all the trio's children. Shalikova, also bisexual, because Shed is as well, says, quote, "We love living and working together. The family house is a 1-minute walk from our office. Lyons and I can have meetings in the office and head back home for lunch with Shed and the kids. It allows us to spend more time together. I love coming home and getting a kiss from Shed, Dante, and Oliver. My pregnancy was a planned one. We were trying for a baby. It just felt like the right time, and parenting together as a threesome is a lot of fun." But Brooke has the primary mothering role. She looks after the children and will homeschool all the kids. Shed, end quote. Shed, who works part-time for Lyons Company, said, quote, "Adam and I always knew I wanted to homeschool our kids. We both excelled at school because we found it too easy. Woo! We wanted to give our children," so these aren't dumb people. I mean, not that school is a sign of like intelligence necessarily, but school sucks. So, but we wanted to give our children a chance to really succeed and get lots of attention. Oliver can read, write, and understand things beyond a normal school academic curriculum. So they appreciate the fact that, no, homeschooling is like, this is a good direction to go. This is how we want to, teach kids. Now, this raises I want to stop there because this raises an interesting point and something that where a lot of people will make the critique that, well, we know that if both the, so the critique that gets made is that, and this actually speaks to feminism, which is, or anti-feminism in a way, or not in a way it is, which is that women can't be mothers and high-powered business people at the same time. Okay. That's the wars. Right. That's the criticism that
pick
comes
one.
up.
Be a mom or be a career woman, but you can't be both and do it well.
Right. Now, to a degree, I can agree that, yes, I think absolutely it's good for a kid to have lots of love. I'm not saying that a woman can't be both. I'm saying it's good for a kid to get a ton of attention. Okay. Now, I've thought about this a lot, and my answer has always been that, well, add people on to the family. There's no reason for that. It just has to be 2 parents. And I don't believe in any kind of special woo-woo connection, that a kid has to. I mean, there's the connection of time and experience with them, but then bring in more people before you start having children or something like that. But I mean, this solves that.
People do that with nannies, au pairs, whatever.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They do that anyway.
I had a nanny growing up. She was fantastic. I mean, she was wonderful, I mean, yeah.
And you had your grandma.
And I had my grandmother, I mean, so yeah, I agree. That sort of thing needs to happen. But the answer doesn't mean that your wife or whatever can't go out and do a high-powered business job or something like that, or can't work full time. Mm-hmm. Just bring more people into this thing, So, all right. Anyway, let's read a little bit more here.
It's interesting that you said, well, a couple interesting things about their lifestyle,
sure,
and where they live and how they live. They live in Austin, which is known to be kind of a weird place,
Yeah, very unique.
Keep Austin weird, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And they live on a large plot of land, and they have these different buildings, and they have a workplace that's close, and they kind of work together as well.
Yes.
Some of them kind of work together. I have seen that in other poly family arrangements, mm-hmm. where they kind of they make it work by closening up their living situation and working situation so that they can all spend more time together.
Right.
And yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, did you have another point on that?
It's almost like, yeah, I did. I don't know if this is going to be opening up a can of worms, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Woo.
So a lot of times people compare families to economies,
Yeah.
They will say, and some people compare everything to economies. But anyway,
drives me nuts.
To economics, and they try to economize things that aren't about economics. But
Not
anyway,
everything is a market transaction, folks.
People compare families to economies, and a lot of people say that families are like communism on a small scale.
Yep.
Right? Because everything's shared. It's like everybody's sort of banding together for the greater good and supporting the people who can't support themselves, which is children. Or maybe a partner who's financially dependent on the other one. And there's sometimes division of labor, right? Like one spouse works, the other one stays home and takes care of the kids. Mm-hmm. But when you have more people, like you can add on these completely new benefits. It's almost like if you're doing division of labor, like they said that one of the women had like this building where they were going to homeschool all the kids.
Yes, and right. They have 2 houses. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was going to be basically used for that. So what a big benefit that she brings to the relationship, and she's taking on that whole sector of like the things that the family needs to do.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything, well, I don't think there's anything crazy about it. I mean, I'm sure there's probably lots of people, maybe even people listening to this, that are like up in arms saying, what the hell is this? How can you do this? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, one of the first critiques that's going to come out is going to be about polygamy. But folks, this is not polygamy. This is like not really.
No, it's not polygamy. And why is it not polygamy?
Bisexuality.
Because the women can be with each other.
Yeah, they love each other.
Yeah. Polygamy is one man, the women are all monogamous to him.
Right.
He is obviously not monogamous to them.
Right.
It's an unequal thing. The man is at the top of the pyramid of power, the women at the bottom, at the base. In this situation, it's just a triangle. It's a flat structure. It's no hierarchy.
Exactly.
They can all love each other, and that's just fine.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, in my opinion, that's so key. I mean, I'm not saying people can't have, like in polyamory, I'm not saying people can't have separate relationships. I mean, they certainly can. I think it's fun when everybody kind of has one, but it's, however that shapes up. But I just wanted to make it clear, save all your arguments. But what about polygamy? This isn't it. It's just not it, because like you said, this is equal all the way around.
Yeah. People argue against polygamy because it's religiously based out of fear and shame and brainwashing, people would say, from religion. And also it's unequal power. It oppresses the women because they don't have the power to choose to be with more than one partner, but the man does.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like there was this woman who I mean, we don't know the whole story around, Lyons and Shelikova and Shed, how they all met up and got together and everything. But it's not like one of them is like, because he's 36. It's not like one of them is like another 36-year-old, and then they brought in some 20-year-old off the street or something like that, right? No, Shed and Shelikova are only a year apart. They're both, 27 and 28. Mm-hmm. And that's, I have no issue with that age spread, of him being 36.
How old is he? 36,
he's 36.
And they're 27 and 28.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That's pretty typical.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of women at that age like guys in that age bracket anyway. I mean, it's a preference. Sure. So, rock and roll. I think that's fine and dandy. So anyway, I'm going to read on some more here. So I think this is, maybe I'll get some complaints. I think this is damn fascinating. Like that this is actually something happening. I think it's happening a whole lot more than people realize. Like I think there's a lot of these relationships and they're all secret.
I think, yeah, the ones where it's actually a polyamorous relationship and there's co-parenting, mm-hmm. a lot of people do keep it secret because they fear that there will be legal consequences, that somebody's going to try to take their kids away. Right. For example, a vengeful ex.
Right.
A vengeful ex-spouse or something like that.
Right.
Or even just some busybody neighbor who doesn't like what they're doing and doesn't want them to have more fun than they're having. And that's very real. I actually think it's very brave and ballsy of them to come out like this, because this article is getting a lot of press. I wonder if anyone's going to try to take their kids away. I hope not. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of Big Love, which that is the case of genuine polygamy, but it was sort of similar where they were in Utah.
They would constantly try to take the kids away, and the families would be closeted because they would face all this persecution,
right? And they had
from Child Protective Services. And Texas is notorious for being a bad place for Child Protective Services, getting unnecessarily involved in families. And then there's always the argument that when the state takes people's kids away and places them in foster homes or whatever, mm-hmm. Often that significantly worsens the child's life. They can get abused, neglected in foster homes, and the risk of that is incredibly high. And so it's like, what actual good are they doing by taking the people's kids away from their parents?
They're making everything worse. Yeah. I mean, and also like
in some cases, right? In some cases, maybe there is justification. There's no easy answer, but in a lot of cases, kids that are put in foster care are not better off than being with their parents, even if the parents are doing something unconventional or outside of the mainstream, like unschooling.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if there's beatings going on and shit like that, I mean, it's a very different story. But I mean, also, kind of remind me of Big Love is that, like in that show, yes, it's fiction. There's 3, like they had the 3 houses, and this they have 2. I mean, it's kind of similar, but I don't know if they took any ideas from that or whatever, to kind of make this work. I was going to say, like, yes, a lot of people who live these lives are closeted because they're afraid of the legal repercussions, especially with their kids. Yeah. But I think this is actually incredibly common. It's just that most of the time it's not polyamorous arrangements. Step families. How many people are divorced who have kids and then they have a new partner? Maybe they even marry someone new. And then suddenly the kid has their original parents who are no longer together, plus maybe two more step parents. And sometimes the step parents become just as involved in the kids' lives as their quote real parents. Right. And so those kinds of families, step families, blended families, are incredibly common nowadays. To the point where 50% of marriages end in divorce. Well, how many of those people have kids? Sure. Right? Those types of families are incredibly common and becoming more so. So there are lots of kids that have more than 2 people that they call parents. And maybe the relationship of their parents is not very harmonious, like it is with these 3 individuals. But they do, regardless of that fact, have more than 2 parents. Sure. I mean, I think that gets into a different area because, like, that's not optimal. No, but I'm saying, wouldn't it be better if it was harmonious? Oh, yeah, right. Absolutely. I agree with you. It's not the thing that's not optimal is that their parents are fighting or that there's disharmony among the adults that take care of them. Right. The thing that's not optimal is not that there's more than 2 parents. Right. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So, all right, there's just a little bit more to read, and I want to cover that, and then I want to dig even deeper into all this. Ched said, quote, Jane and Adam still really want a daughter, so we've agreed that they should definitely try for another baby. But I would definitely love to get married to Adam and Jane. It's something we've always wanted, even though it's not legal. Even so, it's important that the 3 of us can make a commitment to each other with our family and friends around. Lion said, quote, this is the father, or, the dad, or... Yeah, Dad. We haven't got any solid plans for a wedding just yet, but it's on the cards. Prior to that, I'm bringing Shed, Jane, and the kids to England before she gives birth. I want to celebrate our pregnancy with my loved ones in Britain. End quote. Lions, Shed, and Shalikova admit they still like to involve a 4th partner in their sex life. Woo, plot thickens. Lion said, quote, we are still open in our relationship, and we do sleep with other people outside the 3 of us. But to be honest, we don't have much time anymore. We're exhausted and happy with the children. We're still open to fun when it comes along. If we wanted to add someone, I'm sure we could, end quote. Shalikova added, quote, absolutely, we still make time to go to strip clubs together. Cool. Ooh, all right. We just hang out and have fun there. With 3 people around, it's easy to schedule in fun activities. We always make sure we have time to do fun things together and have weekly date nights. Adam, Brooke, and I still sleep in the same super king-size bed together. It still gets very hot and sweaty with the 3 of us, end quote. And that is the end of the story. Wow. Cool. That's very cool. I'm not having kids. If I ever did, that's a fine setup, and I'm not saying that just because, it's a guy and 2 women. I'm just saying, and this is the thing that I want to get into. And this is something I remember I first talked about this probably 4 years ago on Sovryn Tech. And I was scared to death to talk about it because, at the time, it's not so true now, but, in the past, like a lot of my audience was, libertarians, would identify as libertarians or anarcho-capitalists or something like this, which often lends itself to conservatism. And, there was a point where I was a little concerned. I'm like, oh, shit, if I start talking about anything that breaks, a lot of social mores, I am going to lose my audience. They're just going to walk away. Now my audience is so broad. I mean, it's... I was going to say, you seem to have lost that fear. Yeah. Or you decided, fuck it, at some point. Yeah, exactly. Eventually I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to push it out there, and I don't care. And I finally talked about it. But last time I talked about it was with a million caveats, just kind of always saying, look, folks, and I still believe this, but, look, it's okay if you just want a 2-parent household. That's fine. You do what you want to do. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not blah, 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 blah. But the point I was bringing up is that, hey, has anybody ever thought maybe it'd be cool for, to have like a whole bunch of people as parents of a child? Like, that way you don't lose the individuality. Because myself, I was heavily involved in raising 3 kids from a very young age all the way up into what, by some conceptions is adulthood, and, because I was married for 7 years, and even then, and we had like the grandparents involved, and everything. And even then it was still like, I know, like, I didn't have my individuality. I didn't have my autonomy, and my ex certainly didn't. And then, even then I was thinking, I was like, boy, it would just be amazing. Like, if we just had more people, and how could it be bad? Because it would be more, as long as they had it going on upstairs, it would be more love to spread, right?
Yeah, I think so much of it is about your attitude about becoming a parent. Like, if you have this narrow mindset of like, okay, if I become a parent, there's only one way to do it. And that is that there has to be only me and my wife or husband. And we have to take on all this responsibility for all the kids. And we have to do everything and be everything for them. And maybe there's like gender roles thrown in there. Like, if I'm the man, I have to be the provider and I have to make all this money and give it to my kids and my family. And if I'm the woman, then I have to like spend all my time at home with the kids, barefoot in the kitchen, and do all the cooking and everything and the laundry, and like never ask for thank yous or appreciation. I mean, that puts you in a mental prison, if you don't feel like that naturally jives with what you want to do. Some people are perfectly happy in those roles, and I don't mean to disparage them at all.
Sure.
But not everybody is. But if that's your conception of what being a parent is like and has to be like, then if that doesn't fit with who you are, you can't become a parent and be happy.
Yeah. Because absolutely, I totally agree. Look, when you become a parent, when you make that, hopefully you're making the choice. A lot of people aren't. Mm-hmm. Okay. But when you become a parent, you become a steward of this child. Okay. Or of the child, and you've got to give it a lot of attention, and if you are only one of 2, or however that shapes up, maybe it's less. You've got a lot to give up, and you've got to be super careful. It's one of the reasons I don't want to have kids, is because I am terrified of, potentially doing anything, that damages, the growth, shall we say, of the child. I'm absolutely terrified of that. So again, really the solution to me has always been, okay, well then, have the village raise the fucking child. Isn't that what? Not arguably, I think it's anthropological fact that...
I was going to say exactly where I think you're going, mm-hmm. which was the very first line of the article, or the byline, or the subheader was something like, this could be the future of relationships. Well, I think it's the past of relationships.
It's actually, right. It's actually the past.
The distant past.
Yes.
And it's also the present to some extent, because there's so many step families and blended families and that kind of thing.
Right. Or even today in Europe and other, in other continents, other countries, extended families are incredibly commonplace, that they all live in the same house. Yes. And they all, take on, kind of these time duties, like or not duties, but, whatever. Yeah.
They all share their responsibilities.
Oh, yeah. These different responsibilities. That's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. But yeah, exactly. That's how it was done. There wasn't like separation by age group. There wasn't separation by mother or dad. Mm-hmm. How could they even, hunter-gatherer groups, ancient hunter-gatherer groups, or even modern ones? Like, how exactly, maybe who the mother is, but oftentimes, this is getting into a lot of, some degree of speculation. Like, to where, like, why does a woman moan, right? During, or why does anybody moan during sex? Because it's pleasureful or something. Why does it sound so similar to pain? Why biologically are the similar reactions of like why you're expressing, loud noises when you're in pain or when you're in, extreme amounts of pleasure? They're both cries for help.
Yep.
More.
Come over here.
And so like, and this is, you can find this in modern hunter-gatherer belief systems. I'm not saying that they're right. Of course, obviously they're not, but like the idea that, like women used to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie. Women used to think, well, the more seed that I got from all the men here, like maybe this child would be more powerful.
Right. They didn't know that it was like one sperm and that meets the egg and becomes the new person.
Right.
So they thought the more sperm you had, that could have the best qualities of all those different men.
Sure.
Some people thought that in the past.
Yeah, not all hunter-gatherer groups, but I mean,
there were some. And, it's very interesting.
And it's still
to
a
think
practice
about
today
how
by
that
some.
affected their sexual behavior.
Right.
So... And also how that affected parenting, right? Like if all the men didn't know who the fathers were, like any of those kids could be your son or your daughter.
Yeah.
So you treat them as you would your own kid. You love them just as though they are your own.
Right. Now, I think a lot of people would make the claim, well, yeah, but we're not hunter-gatherers anymore. Like we've evolved beyond that or something along these lines. Now, the irony there is that in the same breath, they'll start saying, oh, but we have, reproductive strategies or something like this that goes back to our, evolutionary
right. They'll talk about alpha males and, the woman wants the sperm from the alpha male.
Right. And all that's
beta
okay.
Cuck provider.
Yeah, exactly. All that's okay. But when you start talking about extended families and like the entire tribe raising a child and all this stuff, we're beyond
like,
that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They conveniently ignore that part of history.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything in any way unnatural about this. Not that natural makes something okay. Mm-hmm. But, man, yeah, I mean, you read it. Like, I think it, just for me, it makes so much sense. And yeah. I don't, all right, so you're a biochemist. Mm-hmm. I mean, is there really something, and if you don't know, that's okay. Like, is there really something that somehow, like, there's some kind of special attachment, some kind of biological chemical attachment that a child has to its biological father or something like that?
I mean, they say with the mother, during the birth process, there's a lot of oxytocin that gets released.
Okay.
And there's oxytocin every time the baby nurses. But not all women nurse their babies.
Right. Especially today.
Yeah, exactly. Not every woman breastfeeds. Not every woman is able to produce milk or whatever. So there's that. I mean, they used to have wet nurses, right, in the medieval times and before, where another woman who was lactating would nurse the child if the actual mother couldn't because she didn't produce breast milk or whatever. And then, maybe the child would bond with the wet nurse, right? They would have a special bond. So, I mean, I think there's all kinds of ways that children bond with adults and their parents. Mm-hmm. And, some of those are playing together and some of those are just spending time together. Some of those are physical touch, like nursing or whatever, or sleeping together in the same room or the same bed.
Right.
Or, falling asleep on the parent's lap or whatever while they're holding them as a baby. But, it's not limited to biological. I don't think there's a requirement to be biologically related for an adult and a child to form a bond.
That's that's somehow like just magically, just because you share the same DNA, that makes for better results. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I agree.
What about adopted children?
Well, right.
They don't share the same DNA with their parents, but their parents love them.
Oh, and often
anyway, they love their parents.
Sure. Yeah, I don't buy it. If somebody's making that argument, I just don't buy it. So yeah, this seems to be, in my opinion, this is the direction, because a lot of people talk about, the family structure is being destroyed and all this stuff, and everybody's becoming single parents or, whatever the case may be, that's getting brought up. I get the evidence that people bring out against saying like, this is what happens when a child doesn't have two parents. But most of those studies never address, but what happens if we add in 3 or 4? Because it's usually not done except for in this case. And I think that might be either even better, or that's the real solution to, okay, how do we make enough money to live in the modern world? Because both of us have to work, but then still be the proper steward to this child, that we want to bring into the world. And again, I think that this is the solution, or one of the solutions anyway. If one person's making enough money that the other person can stay at home, great. And this is not a knock on 2-parent families or 1-parent families or anything. I'm not here to insult you. Okay. I'm just saying that I like the point that Lyons is bringing up here, saying, hey, this might be the future. This might be how things go. But your point, Stephanie, I think is totally salient that no, really, it's the past. And maybe we're just getting back to it. Or we're just getting back to what already was an optimal way for a child to, grow up, which I think is really exciting. Now, I think it's interesting. I want to bring this point up quick. I think it's interesting that they're going to Britain, because Britain is a rare place where, in fact, here's a story. This is from just a couple months ago in March. This is from CNN here. 3-parent babies. UK clinic gets okay for groundbreaking technique. And what this is, not necessarily that it's a threesome, like a threesome parenting, like was with the case with, lions and whatever. This is a mitochondrial affair. Okay.
Yeah, this is when
mitochondrial donation. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is when there's 3 people that actually contribute genetic material to the fetus.
Yeah, generally 1 male, 2 females.
Yes.
Right.
Because, so like ordinarily, you need an egg and a sperm for reproduction. Egg comes from the woman, sperm comes from the man, obviously. This is like the birds and the bees. Go back to biology class here. Cover your ears if you have children, you don't want to know about this stuff or whatever, but you probably turned it off long ago if you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, you probably turned it off when I was playing the butt bongos right about then. And Brian was stripping down to his UB key. Anyway,
I like that. That's hot. Stripping down to the UB key.
Yeah,
all right.
I know. It is hot.
Keep going.
So anyway, the woman contributes an egg and the man contributes sperm. Usually what happens is the fetus needs mitochondria. Every cell needs mitochondria. They're like the power plant of the cell. They generate energy for all the cellular processes. And, well, the only place that a fetus can really get their mitochondria is the ones that were originally in the egg that reproduce and copy themselves to become the mitochondria for all the cells in their body. But what if the mitochondria in that egg are defective? What if there's something wrong with them? Well, the individual who's born from that can end up with genetic diseases like there's one called like MRF. Like there's basically they cause seizures, muscle weakness, eye problems. Mitochondrial diseases are bad.
Sure.
Especially in tissues that use a lot of energy, like the heart and the brain and neural tissue and skeletal muscles.
Right.
So what they did to get around that is there's an in vitro fertilization technique where you take kind of the shell of an egg with the DNA from the egg, then you take a sperm, and the cytoplasm of the egg contains the mitochondria. You can kind of suck those out and replace it with mitochondria from a third woman.
Okay.
Or from a third person. And it's easier to get them from another egg, I think. So that's why they do it from a third woman.
Sure.
So then basically you end up with a fetus that has the chromosomal DNA from the mother and the father, the egg and the sperm, but then the mitochondria and their DNA comes from a third person. So literally there's 3 people that contributed genetic material to that baby. So are they all 3 the, quote, biological parents? Yeah.
Right. Now, so in California, and I forget exactly, I think I might have brought this up. Maybe it was on a Sex and Science Hour, or maybe it was on a Sovereign Tech at some point. But I know in California, they have now made it legal where you can recognize 3 parents. Usually it's because of like there's a surrogate.
A surrogate, yeah. Somebody else carries the baby to term. Mm-hmm.
Right, which is even different from this, from the mitochondrial donation. Mm-hmm. But maybe, the Lyons family, I'll call it that, or whatever the Shed family or the Shalikova family. I don't want to like play particulars with the guy. Maybe he's like, no, we're not going to California. That's just crazy. And maybe he's going to Britain because in Britain suddenly, things are getting kind of nicer towards this notion of 3 parents. Even though this is on a scientific, this idea, the mitochondrial donation situation, this is, in vitro and whatever, is very different. It's not just like a choice. Mm-hmm. This is a, biological situation. Maybe he thinks that they have a better chance of perhaps getting married there and having, getting their legal situation on the up and up because he is from Britain.
Are they going to have the baby there or?
Yeah, they did say, that the next baby they're going to have there.
Maybe it's a health insurance thing.
Maybe
they want to use his health insurance.
Yeah. I don't know. But I think that's an interesting aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think that this is very much the future of relationships. I think we have a generation
the past of relationships.
Yeah. And the past.
And the present.
Yeah. Right. And that's another huge part. And I think you can actually do some DuckDuckGo searching about this and you'll find that like in cities and other places, there's like multiple apartments, whole floors that get rented out by people, not even people that have kids, but people that are in a, either a 3 or however many number polyamorous relationship. In fact, I know that happens. I know people that do that.
Oh yeah.
So, this is happening, folks, whether you want it. Now it's just getting out in the open. All right. I mean, and I think it's always kind of been this way. That's another thing too. In fact, I've heard claims that, maybe the upper echelons of society, the 1% or something like that, they've been, some people make the claim, and there's some degree of sociological research, that they've always lived this way. And you just don't know it. And this whole idea of the nuclear family and all this different stuff.
Just to keep the plebes in line.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's papers about this, that get written up, full studies on this notion that whole idea of the nuclear family is something that it's a cell. It's not like something that was really ever necessarily there. You just didn't know that there was something else. But regardless, it's happening on the ground floor now. So, but again, there's no judgment towards how people listening to this show, how you are doing your family, whatsoever. I mean, please do you, and always do you. That is, if there's a number one message that Sovryn Tech ever wants to get out there, is that I'm hoping technology empowers you to do you, be it being able to live at home with, as a threesome parenting situation, or as a threesome without parenting, or whatever. I hope it empowers all of that, and I think that's really, amazing, that this is happening. There's no real negativity in this article. I can't believe they're getting away unscathed, though. I can't believe there aren't people that are I didn't even look at the comment section. I'm actually afraid to, on this story, because I could picture just the attacks that they probably get. Yeah. Sadly, I don't think there's a lot of people giving them high fives. So,
but there are some.
Yeah.
We're giving them a virtual high five.
Damn right. So any closing thoughts on this? Otherwise we could wrap it up.
No, I just, I wish them all the best.
Same here. I absolutely wish them the best. I think this will be interesting. These are the kinds of things I think that are worth some study. That way we can look at the future and say, yeah, what happens if we add on more adults, into a child's life? Could this just be a wonderful, beautiful thing? And again, I just want to reiterate this, where there is no argument being made for polygamy. I mean, on a personal level, I even disagree with them wanting to get married. It's like, why? Obviously you don't need to. You're doing a great job, just being what you are. I mean, I guess there's the tax situation or something, but I don't know.
I guess to show commitment, or to have a legal recognition that they're a family.
Sure.
Which, I don't know. I find that kind of weak arguments, but for marriage, but
yeah,
whatever.
But that's just me speaking personally. They can do what they want. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just talking about my own personal preferences. Not that I think there's anything, not going right or wrong on that stuff. So anyway, the best to that family. I think that's exciting, and certainly something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And we'll be right back with more. Woo! Boy, talk about something. You want to get into some history, things that have been around for a while. Let's talk about gold and silver. Woo! That is the past, but still also, in my opinion, a huge part of the future for very good reasons, because, you hear about this crack happening, this ransomware, this malware, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? Gold and silver, when you're holding it in your hand, when you've got it right in front of you, doesn't affect it at all.
Uncrackable.
Uncrackable, baby. This is real uncrackable cold storage. I mean, this is the real shit. So you want to get your hands on some. And how I want you to do that, I want you to go to Roberts & Roberts Brokerage, one of the best businesses in the world, straight up. These people do it right. Okay. And believe me, they do it so right. How's that Bitcoin price handling for you, baby? It's going through the roof. Well, diversify your wealth a bit to hold off when maybe you think there's going to be a correction or a bubble or whatever you happen to think about it. They will take. Roberts & Roberts Brokerage accepts Bitcoin. They are Bitcoin preferred business, and you can get your hand on gold and silver with some Bitcoin. How can you beat that? So go to rrbi.co. rrbi.co. Let them know the Golden Stallion sent you. They're going to know exactly who you're talking about because they listen to the show. They're the real deal. Okay. And they've been a long-time sponsor. And I just love our sponsors because they don't care when I talk about all the shit like I just did. Woo! So jump on board with it. Roberts & Roberts Brokerage. Get your hands on some gold and silver. Diversify your wealth. Get that real cold storage. Get that offline action going for you, baby. And that's the way to do it with precious metals. rrbi.co. And we thank them for supporting Sovryn Tech.
GameTalk.
Woo! We're going to get into some game talk, but we've been playing a game this whole episode. And actually...
Strip Sovryn Tech.
We're running out of, we have had two really somewhat unexpected. One of them was kind of planned, but kind of unexpected conversations that I think were just phenomenal. So I am wiping out entire segments for this particular episode. And then maybe finally next week we'll get into because I've got like 5-6 segments planned now. I'm trying to make the show as diverse as possible. No, don't even worry about it. And I'm especially not going to complain because we got to play the game, baby. And that means it's time to take off some more clothes. Woo! Go for it, Stephanie. It's all you. Unless you want me to go first this time?
Yeah, you go first.
All right, I'll go
time.
first this time.
You have 3 things. No, so what is Brian going to take off? He's got his glasses, his YubiKey around his neck,
yep,
and his underwear.
All right.
So what is he going to take off this time?
I guess we'll make it a surprise.
Okay, he's standing up.
Didn't even have to take off my headset.
He's exposing his butt. He's airing his stuff.
Woo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now he's playing the butt bongos. That's
not
fun.
for long, but oh, baby.
Oh,
Woo.
Do you feel a cool breeze, Brian?
Oh, it's suddenly,
took
wow.
off his underwear, folks.
It's hotter. It feels hotter in here, but at the same time, it feels colder. It's a paradox. Paradox, because I feel a draft.
Speaking of a pair of something, you are constantly on the lookout for thong underwear, men's thong underwear.
Which
Kmart. You can't find. It's Kmart.
It's the only place. Unbelievable.
You want to get your underwear at Kmart.
I know. It's so
I feel like you should do a search on Amazon. Put it on your wish list, and then some people can buy it. I'm sure people would love to buy you sexy underwear.
That's probably, that's something I will consider.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, if you want to help out the show, I'm just going to say this real quick because we've been working on this for a while. Studio 2 in the house, and wishlist.zog.ninja. It's in the show notes as well. You can find it. If you want to help out, there's a mixer. There's a bunch of stuff in there that could really help take everything we're doing to the absolute next level. Wishlist.zog.ninja. If you want to just buy some straight up equipment, for us. I mean, the patrons help out a ton, allows for a lot of extra content, amazing things to get done. But this is another way that you can help out the show.
Yeah, and that would be really helpful. I just want to put in a little word for that
Sure.
because before I strip, yeah. Well, I still have my shirt. Before I lose my shirt. Basically, all you need is a little $100 mixer that you've already picked out.
Yes, it's a Yamaha.
Yep. You have everything else you need. You got a computer, you got a microphone, you got headphones, you have everything else you need to produce high quality audio in Studio 2.
Right.
The problem, the reason why you can't do that yet is because you don't have that mixer.
Right.
And that's what you need in order to bring it up to the next level. So once that puzzle piece falls into place, we'll have a second studio in our home.
Yeah.
And the reason why you can't use this studio more often to make content is because I am normally using the studio.
Yeah, because you're a professional voice actor.
I'm a voice actor. I use the studio all day, every day. I'm in here every day.
Yeah. I mean, and you're literally helping Audible go round and round. You're working with some of the biggest, literally some of the biggest companies in the world on a daily basis. And I mean, no joke, like the biggest that you can think of.
Thank you. So I'm really proud of it. And but I do use the studio a lot. I do work a lot. And that means that Brian can't always get in here. If I'm working on something, he can't exactly just come in and start recording his stuff because we don't have any kind of soundproof division or anything. It would affect what I was doing. So that's why we need Studio 2. And those will be separated by floors, so they won't bleed. The noise won't leak into each other. But all he needs is that little $100 mixer. So
that's kind of the big part.
We would like somebody out there to help us make it happen.
Yeah, because everything else, and this is meaning, we're going to do video. We've already had great Sovryn Tech listeners donate other equipment, a camera, a bunch of other stuff. I mean, through the wish list, and it's just been really helpful. And these are just kind of the last pieces. Some of it's kind of a want, but I mean, there's things that are definitely a need, like that mixer. So anyway, thank you for saying that, Stephanie, but I'm sorry. Look, you've got to drop some trout. Well, you already dropped trout.
Well, I did. I don't have any trout to drop.
So what are we taking? All right, well, let's see. Here we go. I will do the narration. Oh boy. Whew. Oh, sorry. Oh, this is so good. Oh, there's a sleeve getting pulled. Here it is. Oh, this can only mean one thing. Woo, oh, it hit mic drop. Here goes the other sleeve. You might want to step a little away from the mic. Oh my God, what a vision. No, I'm sorry. Oh my Satan. You All right, she is pretty much nude. I mean, and she is dancing around like an Orion animal woman. This is a Star Trek dream come true. Oh my God. Oh,
hello, Brian.
Wait a minute, that's my
your
microphone
now.
Oh my God, I'm getting a lap dance right now. Oh, this is nice. Okay, all right, that's bad audio, but it felt good to me. Oh, all right. Oh dear. Okay. So yeah. All right. So we're pretty much nude now.
You didn't do a very good job of narrating what I was doing.
Well, I didn't know what I didn't want to like.
I stood up. I took one sleeve out. I took the other sleeve out. I turned around so that all you could see was my back.
You're doing a full dance.
Then I took off the shirt. I swirled it around over my head, and then I finally turned around so you could see the tits. And then I came over to your lap, and I started doing a lap dance. And then I gave you a kiss. I sat down on your lap.
And I
said hello on your microphone, and then I came back over here.
Look, I was speechless. What do you expect? I got one of the hottest women on the planet, the hottest woman on the planet, in my opinion. You know, what am I supposed to say? I'm already tongue-tied now. And I need this thing for later.
All right, well, let's move on.
All right.
Let's do the rest of the show.
Okay, wow. There's other things going on. I dare not narrate. All right. I love it. Okay, so this is Game Talk. We're going to skip HackSec. I had a Facebook story I want to talk about. I'm going to skip that. We'll save it all for next week. I had an album of the week. We're going to save that too. But Game Talk is wow. Okay, that's distracting. No, don't apologize. But anyway, Game Talk, but not very professional of me, but that's kind of the point.
What game have you been playing this week?
So, yes, in fact, you caught me earlier.
I caught you playing.
You came down into the kitchen. I had my laptop set up, and suddenly you're like, "Oh, hi, Stallion," and then and I turn around, you know, no, you don't mind if I play games. But this is a game that I think is really, really cool. Did you ever, Stephanie, growing up, did you ever play Space Invaders?
Yes, I did. I'll tell you where I played it.
Yes, that would be the next question, because this is a game that's been on like every platform ever made. Go for it.
It was on every platform, because where I played it was on my TI-86 graphing calculator.
Whoa! Serious nerd cred.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Playing it on a graphics calculator?
I remember playing that game on my calculator. It was a rudimentary version of it, but yeah, it was the same game.
Look, if anything could be hotter than this body in front of me, that's hot. I did not expect that answer. Holy shit.
Well, nobody ever expects the stuff that I come up with.
Yeah. Wow. The way to always win is never let them see you coming. I mean, boy, that nice.
I think I also played it in an arcade, but that wasn't nearly as cool as the calculator.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So the first place I ever played it was at a roller skating rink called Skaterama in New York. And yeah, I played it on the arcade. You know, it was the big machine with that. It was a good
arcade game. It's like basically these little monsters come up from above, from space. And you're like a rocket ship, and you're kind of shooting at them you can hide behind little walls.
Like shields. They call them shields.
They're dropping bombs on you. You're shooting up at them. You can hide behind the shield so that the bombs don't get you, but you have to come out from under them, obviously, to be able to shoot at them. And if the monsters get down to earth, then you lose. Yeah, so now, I'm not just telling you, I mean, because I think everybody's kind of heard of Space Invaders. In fact, I think there's even a movie getting made out of it. That's ridiculous, in a bad way, because like there's... What's the plot? It's not that much to it.
Right, based upon some other recent Hollywood plots I've heard, this is terrible. But anyway, this is a remake that I want people to check out. If you have a Windows computer, like I said, having that's like we talked about earlier, having that separate gaming machine off to the right? Not that this requires a lot of, heavy specs, you don't need a gaming computer to be able to run this. But this is absolutely beautiful. The link is in the show notes for it, and it's actually made by Richard Langford, who has done quite a few remakes. This is totally free. There's no money involved. Obviously, he doesn't own like the rights to the property, and that's why he's kind of getting away with it. But this is awesome. So you saw me playing it. In fact, it's really cool what it can do. There's a lot, you can change a lot of the settings. It plays like classic Space Invaders, and it's, Space Invaders, it's such a basic gameplay, but so much fun, and still requires some interesting skill. It's easy enough to play with just the arrow keys and the space bar to fire, because it's all there is, moving left and right and the fire button. But you can change a lot of the different settings. You can have different themes. In fact, one of my favorite ones is where it makes it look like pen and paper. and like all the little aliens coming down look like they're drawn with like blue ink or something.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, which you saw me doing that. You can set it for like the ZX Spectrum settings, or you can make it look like it did on the Atari 2600, all the different platforms that you played on, or you could do the original arcade one, or there's even a more modern one, which looks kind of interesting to hear to kind of see that take on such a classic game. And you can change, like you can make it to where the shields move back and forth. You can make it so that the bombs that the aliens drop actually like wave instead of go straight down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different settings that you can set up on this that they really update the style of this game. It really makes it into something special, something different, which I think is really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, people can check this out. Again, I absolutely love it. I mean, the best part is, and we haven't done this yet, Stephanie, but we need to, is you can play co-op.
Yeah, that's
two-player, because the original arcade bench,
bring that up.
Right?
Yeah.
The original arcade, didn't allow for that. It was just a single-player affair. But no, this can be two-player. How do you feel about that, Stephanie?
Oh, I know what we're doing later tonight.
Hell yeah! Maybe instead of Dr. Mario, and after we do something else, we'll maybe we'll crank out some Space Invaders. Woo!
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good time. So, anyway. Link is in the show notes. Just look under Game Talk. We'll be right back.
Babylon 5 ended a great war and united 100 alien races in peace. Danger didn't die. It just went underground, with new heroes and new evils to carry the torch.
We need to make sure they all understand we will not be intimidated.
What is wrong with you people?
We have to pit him against himself.
It's an entire new season of Babylon 5 with all new episodes.
Babylon 5 is available for download on your favorite torrent site. See it now to experience the greatest show in television history. Babylon 5.
The Climax.
Woo! We're going right into the climax, baby. And look, we've got nothing else to take off. I mean...
I'm out. I'm completely out.
Yeah, I'm not taking off the UB key. And I mean, maybe I could take off my watch, but, we're naked. We're doing a podcast. I'll wash the seats after, just in case we have any guests on in the future and they're concerned about that sort of thing.
I put some stuff down on the seat.
Oh, you did?
But yeah, I'm sitting on my clothes.
Oh, much smarter than I toss my clothes across the room. So, okay.
So right now your bare ass is on my office chair, my good office chair.
Yeah, man. Well, it feels good having that leather on, I mean, that's why people wear assless chaps,
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the climax here. We've got something really fun to actually review, and it's something we just finished watching season 2 of. And that is Sense8.
Yes.
Now, this is a show I have been requested to review for a long time because season 1 came out 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Came out in 2015. Yeah. And people, right away knew that I would want to, watch this and would be, and we're interested to hear about it because I am a fan of both the Wachowskis because I love the entire Matrix saga. Not just the trilogy, even though I love all 3 of those movies. I love the entire Matrix saga, including the Matrix Online and all that, which I think a lot of people want to ignore the Matrix Online because it gets into transgender stuff, but I don't care. So, there's that. And then also I am a huge fan. In fact, people just heard an ad for it for Babylon 5, which Babylon 5 is kind of the first show, or not the first show, J. Michael Straczynski. So the Wachowskis and J. Michael Straczynski made Sense8. It is a joint effort on their part, and it shows, and we'll talk about that. But Straczynski, kind of what made his name was Babylon 5, which is a groundbreaking television show in a lot of ways, particularly in the fact that, like some of the things we'll talk about that's going on in Sense8, I know that Straczynski has, or JMS as he's called, has wanted to do since the 90s with Babylon 5, like having LGBTQ characters, which he was able to slip in the first bisexual woman character in television history back in the 90s. But he had to slip it in. Like a lot of people may not even realize it, that she was, even though she makes it very clear that she was in love with a woman and she slept with a man. But anyway, so, Straczynski did other stuff. He did Captain Power, Soldiers of the Future. I mean, he's been around for a while. So, and he's made helped out a lot with Marvel, has a great comic book history and all this different stuff. So he's a guy that a lot of people have respect for. When he makes something, they watch. And I don't know exactly how Sense8 is doing in the ratings. I assume it's popular, but it's hard to find people that have watched it. Like, it's hard to find people a lot of people said, yeah, I've heard of it. I'll check it out at some point.
Yeah, that's how I felt before I started watching it. Like, I'd heard about it, but I wasn't sure what it actually was. But I think I had heard about it because you said, oh, do you want to watch this new show? And I was like, I'll start it later.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of the people I talk to who have seen it, they love it. I think the people who haven't seen it probably didn't get past like the first episode because they probably saw, this is a gay fucking show. Like it is so gay.
Oh, in the best way. I just love it.
Right. I mean, like this is, I'll tell you, this is probably the most subversive show since Star Trek. I think there's so much shit getting like again, slid in, which Straczynski's a master of. Getting slid in so many different ideas, accepting transgender issues, again, the whole LGBT spectrum, lots of things, lots of ideas, lots of philosophies, all getting slid into this. And if you're not like aware of these things, if I was somebody that wasn't aware of them already, like this would definitely be picturing or coloring my world. I'd be like, wow, this is, and that's okay. And Straczynski has said that in the past. I mean, if there's anybody in this world I know Straczynski. And, he said it decades ago. He said that, Hollywood or, the television or movie industry is the last bastion of free speech. That's his opinion. Now, how I feel about that is neither here nor there, but it's certainly an area where he thinks if you want to get out some revolutionary ideas, this is where you do it. And I think he really did it with Sense8. There's so much going on in this show. So just real quick, I'll say what it's about. And then Stephanie, I want you to break down, what you loved about it. But the basic idea here, and spoiler alerts, folks, spoiler alerts. The basic idea is that there is this other type of human, kind of like Neanderthal, Homo sapien, and Denisovan. But there's this other type of human that's been around for a while.
Homo sensorium.
Yeah, Homo sensorium that has like this, this has to do with 8 individuals, but these are people that are like telepathically linked. And they can kind of inhabit each other's bodies to a degree, and they can talk to each other, be in each other's
share like
heads.
skills that they have.
Right.
They're born in these things called clusters, which is like a group of 8 people that are connected to each other. But they can also so-called visit with other sensates that are not in their own cluster.
Yeah, well, that's something that started happening more in season 2. That was kind of a shift. But there's really a mythology getting built around this, Homo sensorium, concept of what these people can do and, different abilities and all of this. But it's interesting because each of these people are dealing with different problems all around the world that, sometimes it's to their benefit. Other times it's to their detriment, that they experience what these other, what one experiences of the other 7 individuals or however that ends up taking shape. It's important to point out this is an incredibly global show.
Yeah.
Meaning that,
they filmed it in like 20 different cities or something. For
around the world.
First and second seasons. Yeah.
Right. You have, you have the German character, you have an Indian character, you have a Mexican character, a Korean character,
Kenya, Nairobi,
right? American,
California,
Iceland, yeah,
Iceland, yeah.
It's taken place all around the world, which is really, really exciting, and I think it speaks to really the new direction that most media companies are going towards. It's something I've talked about a lot recently with movies like The Great Wall with Matt Damon and some others, where some movies in Hollywood are being made China first, meaning that they know that their money's going to get made in China. And so they make it with the Chinese cultural flair, which I think is fine. Cause I totally get it. And, I watch it and I think it's beautiful, and you just have to understand that that's what it's delivering. And that's the kind of the first strength of this show is that I could picture this being watched all around the world, and everybody's going to feel kind of represented. That their cultural, their background is being represented, and they can fall in love with a certain character, and then they can experience kind of maybe the zaniness of these other parts of the world through the eyes of the character that they can most relate to. So this is, just on that alone, I think is almost a guaranteed hit. It appears to be kind of a hit. We don't know if it's going to get a season 3, even though season 2 ended with a bit of a cliffhanger. So anyway, but Stephanie, what do you think about this show? How do you feel about it?
I thought it was really interesting. Haven't you ever sort of wished that you could literally step into someone else's shoes for a minute? and like be with them even when you weren't physically together. Like, I think everybody's kind of wished that. I definitely have. I mean, we have the ability to empathize with people, at least most people do.
Sure.
And sort of understand as best we can what they're going through and where they're coming from. But as far as having a really deep connection, you don't get to experience that with many people in your life.
Right.
Certainly not like usually random people that are across the world.
Sure.
But this show sort of explores the idea of, well, what if you could have this incredibly deep, intimate connection where you could literally feel like see what they're seeing and feel like you're right there with them, even though you're not physically together with random people all over the world.
Right.
And what if you could like benefit from their skills and their experiences and their perspective? And whenever you need like sort of a helping hand, you won't be alone. You always have the experiences of these other people to back you up.
Right. Like say you're in a life or death situation, you're in a street fight of some kind. You're not a street fighter, but then like in the show Sense8, you have the character, the female character of Sun, who from Korea, who she is like this. I mean,
she's like a
by
fighter.
night she's a prize fighter,
Yeah.
and she's she's great. She's full on martial arts, the whole thing. And if you could access her abilities for a little while, or have her inhabit you for a minute, and thus you would have this ability to get out of the street or win this street fight. You
need to be able to drive. There's a character of Capheus, and he drives a bus, and he's like a really good. He gets the nickname Van Damme. Like his bus is painted with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
There's so
like
much
a gimmick
I could,
bus to get people to ride it, and he's like a really good driver, and he uses his driving skills, and he can like hotwire a car and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's so much I could talk. Boy, we could talk about the show for an hour because there's so much to dig into.
Yeah, but then there's like the aspect of like, whoa, what happens when they can actually fall in love with each other? Because like some of the characters start to get like romantically interested in each other. And then sometimes there's these scenes where they're all having sex and then it just becomes like an orgy because they're all kind of with each other and they're all feeling what the other ones are feeling. So it's just like this giant orgy.
Yeah, like there's a scene where the one character is actually like he's working out in a gym and then suddenly he feels like he's getting it up the butt. I mean, like
I thought he was just getting kissed by the other guy.
No. Well, because Lito, right? The Mexican character says like, oh yeah. I think he explicitly says I
thought he gave him a blowjob or something like that. I think it was something. He said he had sex.
Which I mean, again, this is a different type of human. I think it's a good reason. I think it's a good thing they made it clear like that because the lines of like, well, where is rape, and all that in this. I mean, but they're really one organism. So like.
I guess
you're kind of making love
like
to yourself.
An elaborate form of masturbation. I don't know, but I mean, it would
because they
be
even describe it like one of the characters just says that when sensates fall in love with each other that are part of the same cluster, the cluster is like the people that you're directly connected with. She even says like loving within your own cluster is the worst form of narcissism. So they're making it very clear you're like one organism in it.
Yeah. So we don't know if that one can be trusted. She's like a character that may have been collaborating. Oh, so the other plot is there's this evil company called BPO that may have started out like to preserve and learn about the sensates, but actually ended up like mission creeping and changing into an organization that tries to destroy them.
Destroy and control, yeah.
Yeah, and control them. So basically all of the sensates are kind of like running from this company that's constantly trying to capture them and hunt them down and like experiment on them and stuff. And so then there's characters that are sort of like hunting them and they have to get away. So where is it going with that? I don't know. I mean, that makes it kind of interesting, but at the same time, I feel more interested in the other plot line, just I don't know, just the relationships with each other and like what's going. They're already kind of chronicling what's going on in 8 different people's lives and how their fellow sensates are helping them out and manage those situations. That's interesting enough without BPO trying to like hunt them down and get them.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, you have like Sun's character is dealing with like this internal politics within this huge pharmaceutical company that her father owned.
It wasn't a pharmaceutical company; it's a finance company.
The Indian. Yes.
So Kala, the Indian character, works for a pharmaceutical company.
Right. Sorry.
She ends up discovering, because she marries the son of the owner of the company, she ends up discovering that they're shipping like bad drugs and that might just be the tip of the iceberg. We won't find out until like season 3. But Sun, the Korean character, works for a finance company, and her brother also works there. He's like a big shot in the company. Her father owns the company. Mother died when she was a little kid and told her last words were like, take care of your brother.
Right.
Sun finds out that her brother is embezzling from the company, and she catches him and she goes to the father and she knows that they're caught. The media and the authorities are going to find out. And the only way they all see is for her to take the fall for this crime that she didn't do and say, oh, I embezzled this money.
Yeah.
That's the only way they see to like save the company from disgrace or whatever.
Yeah.
So she confesses to this crime that she didn't commit, and she ends up in prison. And remember, she's a fighter. She's like, she has this hobby of like martial arts, and she's really good because she's been doing it since she was a little kid.
Yes.
So while she's in prison, she has to defend herself a couple times because she gets in prison fights and things like that. She ends up making some friends. And then her father comes to her in prison and says, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I haven't been able to sleep. I'm going to tell the truth and get you out of here. But then a few days later, he is found dead. And her brother says it's a suicide, but obviously it's not. It's her brother murdered her father because he was going to tell the truth. And her brother wants anybody who's going to tell the truth that he really committed the crime dead. So then he tries to kill Sun. He hires people and tries to like hang her in the prison. And she gets out of it with the help of a fellow convict who was in there for like killing her abusive husband or something.
Right.
So it's like,
it's an old woman.
Not really a bad, and then they go on the lam, and then she's trying to hunt down her brother. Anyway, that's just one plot line. Like, that's interesting enough about like what's going on in her life.
Right.
And then the other characters help her out at various points. So that's interesting enough without even bringing BPO into it. But yeah.
So my point, the reason with the pharmaceutical company is that they, like in the first season, the first few episodes, they make it clear that financial company is funding pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And then the woman in India, she's working for, and like her husband ends up like, pretty much owning, or is the son of the owner of a pharmaceutical company. So I think in the future, there's going to be some kind of synergy there. Something's going to connect.
And the company makes these drugs, like the character in Kenya, like his mother has AIDS or HIV.
Right.
And so they're he can't get medication from her. He's trying to get it from the black market.
Yeah.
And probably that pharma company makes those drugs and like exports them to Kenya and stuff.
Yeah. So it's interesting how a lot of their personal business lives like actually interact and, to varying degrees, or separation degrees. Yeah, I mean, this idea of like a lot of different plot lines and interweaving plots, like that's totally Babylon 5. I mean, Straczynski is the king of doing that sort of thing, where he has a million different plot lines, going on at the same time. Now, but the unique thing about Straczynski is that like the X-Files did this. I can think of a lot of shows where they had a bunch of different conspiracies, a bunch of different plot lines that you had to deal with like each season or something. But a lot of times they'd never get sewn up. I mean, there's so much, like, especially with the X-Files, there was so much shit over all those years. And I love the X-Files. Like, I mean, I love them. That still to this day have never really been solved. I mean, they just never put it together. Straczynski is good at solving all this stuff, but also he's unique in that I think a lot of shows today, I feel like, are constantly problem. You get a solution for a second and there's like a happy moment for 1 second, but then it's back to problem. The nice thing about Sense8, and this is totally Straczynski, is that he will do episodes where you get payoff, where you finally get, no, you know what? This is going to be happy-go-lucky. There's going to be some actual growth for this character. They're actually going to get to the next level and it's not going to be shit for them. So like there's plenty of moments in the show that are absolutely happy. I mean, which is so rare on TV. In fact, hell, I half think that's the reason there's so many depressed people in the world. It's because we don't have enough shows with like genuine, it can have kind of a happy ending. And that can be the reality. A happy ending really can be the reality or something. Because that's another aspect that I think the show does well, is it like debunks a lot of the tropes that you see in television and in Hollywood in general. Like there's the scene where, I won't say when this happens, where they're shooting the gas tank of a car. And Wolf, the character Wolfie, the German guy, says, it's like, no, that just works in the movies. You don't shoot a gas tank and it just blows up, and it was like, it was so cool to finally hear some reality, for once. So I think the show is very grounded in reality for the fantastical things that it's kind of showing off. So, I love it for that. Like,
another happy part that I
Sure.
really liked was there's a character who's an actor in Mexico, Lito,
Mm-hmm.
and he is gay, but he's in the closet. And
Originally, he's a
When the
huge
show's-
actor in Mexico. Nobody knows that he's gay.
right, and he's got women coming on to him, and he's like, sorry, my heart belongs to another.
Yeah.
And, he doesn't tell anyone that he's actually gay.
Right.
And he has this beard that, like, this girl that he goes out that he takes to movie premieres so nobody suspects. But,
Yes.
But she, one day she shows up at his house because she wants to sleep with him. But she comes in and finds out that his boyfriend is there.
Yeah, finds his lover. Yeah.
And she goes, oh, no, this is perfect because I love gay porn and I want to stay with you guys. And also I'm on the run from this guy that wants to marry me, but he's also kind of abusive. So make sure I stay with you guys and be protected. So they live together for a while and they all become friends. But eventually she takes a picture of them on her phone having sex.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the guy that wanted to marry her gets a hold of the picture and uses it to try to blackmail Lito because
Right.
he doesn't want anyone to know that he's gay. But and so first he pays him and says don't release the picture, and Daniela, the girl, goes back to him and she gets beat up, and his boyfriend says, look, I can't be with somebody who is a coward like that.
Yeah.
And so he thinks about it for a couple days and then eventually says, you know what, you're right. Goes to the thug and says, you know what, I don't care what you do with this picture. I'm taking her. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
And he saves her.
Yeah. And then he has
And then he
that
gets
big
his boyfriend back.
right, and he has a big coming out moment like in Sao Paulo where
Well, there's more before that.
Oh yeah.
Before that, so the picture gets out on the internet. The guy releases the picture, and everybody's laughing at him. He starts losing jobs.
Yep.
His agency drops him.
Yeah.
But then he gets asked to MC this gay pride parade in Sao Paulo, and so they all go, and he gives this big passionate speech, and he kisses his boyfriend, and it becomes like a viral hit. It gets millions of views. And then he starts getting parts, but in LA, not in Mexico.
Yeah.
And then he goes to these parties in LA, and it's like everybody's gay. And they're all just like so nonchalant about it being out and gay.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's like a very happy moment. Like he can be out.
Yeah.
And there's no problem.
Yeah, I love it for that it's not just constantly bad. I mean, I can think of so many shows where it's like, oh, and even when you think something just turned good, it just they instantly make it bad. And there's plenty of points where nope, it stays good and it just keeps riding that high, which I think is awesome. So yeah, I mean, and this is also probably the first show I can think of where you have a full on, absolutely 100% genuine transgender woman
Actor, yeah.
actor on the show, and she was
That's Jamie Clayton.
right.
Yep.
She was a man, and she's been a woman for some time now.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting thing too that I found out when I was initially researching this show, or not initially, but when I've been recently researching the show, was that in 2016 both of the Wachowskis are now women. Originally just Lana. Became it was because they used to be when they made The Matrix, they were the Wachowski brothers,
Right.
And then Lana ended up, she's Lana. She became a woman a few years ago, but then in 2016, the other Wachowski brother is now Lily. So they're the Wachowski sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, they both are
Oh my
now.
gosh, that's so cool.
I agree. I think that's fantastic. So I think that shows. I think their understanding of what people in the LGBT spectrum go through.
It's so obvious.
It's there, and they can write it with such passion and so legitimate, and it's a special show for that alone. I think that's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I love it for that. So now, who would you say is your favorite character? Of say out of the Sense8s, or out of the main 8 characters.
Oh, it's so hard to pick a favorite character, but
You have a favorite. Come on.
well, I have a favorite actor. That's Max Remelt, who plays Wolfgang. He is so hot, and I just think he's such a good actor. And I admit,
does have a nice ass, I have to say.
He does some nude scenes,
Yep.
yeah, and he's really good looking. And I don't know, there's something that draws me to him. I don't really know what it is, but I do have a thing for German accents.
Whoa, don't get that out there. Anyway, go ahead.
Why not?
Well, because then every German guy, I mean, I know I have a lot of German listeners.
Really?
So,
I've never heard any of them. Go, talk to me.
what are you talking about? Of course I do. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because you don't have a call-in show, but I just don't know about it. But yeah, I have a weird fetish for German male voices, and his is no exception. I really like his. I don't know. I just really like his acting.
Sure.
So he's got a fan, and the character that he plays is really interesting too. It's interesting that his name is Wolfgang because he is kind of like a lone wolf. Like he doesn't talk much.
Yes.
He's kind of like has trouble asking for help, and I can really relate to that because I can be a lone wolf sometimes too.
Sure.
And I can be like, it is hard for me to like reach out to people and ask for help sometimes, even when I'm in a really difficult situation.
Yeah.
And even sometimes like the more difficult it is, the less likely I am to reach out for help.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wish I just had 8 people or 8 or 7 other people who like knew when I needed them. but I feel like I do. I feel like I have a lot of great friends that can tell like when something is wrong and they ask me what's going on.
Yeah.
Sort of like a spidey sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another idea that I don't know that they necessarily intended on, that Straczynski and the Wachowskis, intended on. But I feel like, kind of it's fiction, of course, but sort of the logical play that kind of shows off and what gets parlayed. Like it sort of shows the strength, I think, of kind of the Dunbar number, of like, keep it in this with
like
the
a
power
small
of what
group.
the small knit group can do.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's almost like a biologically forced union of egoists. I think it's really slick. Anyway.
What about you? Do you have a favorite character? Well, I was going to say, actually, besides the character of Wolfgang, I really like the character Leto as well.
Yeah,
like,
he's
just
hilarious.
like, I just really like his... I don't know. I just like his story, and I'm glad that it has sort of a happy ending. And I'm so glad that it's like gay issues are coming to the forefront, LGBT stuff. Also, like Nomi's story is interesting too. She's the one that's played by Jamie Clayton, a transgender actress, and she's got this girlfriend named Amanita.
Yeah.
Which is a mushroom. Amanita phalloides, which is like the magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
That
man.
people take to the tripping. And anyway, so she's got a girlfriend named Amanita, and Amanita's family is very interesting because her mother is like this, quote, nice Jewish girl from Brooklyn or something.
Yep.
That in the 70s, I guess, had a thing for black guys. So she had like these...
She was hanging with all the Black Panthers and everything. And
these 3 guys that were Black Panthers. And then, like, I don't know, she got pregnant and they didn't know which one of them was the father. So they just all like lived together and raised her as though they were all her father.
I
and
did
she
not
said
plan
on,
this,
on
folks.
all of her forms in school that she said she had 3 dads and she would list them all.
Like the Lyons family, huh?
Yeah. And it came out fine. And,
well, I mean, again, it's fiction, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, but
You can see how it would work.
It's probably based on something that's kind of like not that far from the truth. Like there's lots of people who grew up in communes, right?
Sure.
Especially children of the 70s,
Well, I think that really there's 2 or 3 other collaborators with the show that often take up the directorial responsibilities for which is interesting because Straczynski and the Wachowskis are all great directors. I mean, Straczynski's a phenomenal director. So maybe those other people that they bring in to do some of the directorial roles, maybe have experience with those kinds of lifestyles. Because it seems like they brought that in. Like Straczynski's style is all over the writing, like how he brings the narrative together. But then like a lot of the more social issues that come up in it are obviously the Wachowskis can deal with them. And maybe these other directors, I don't know much about them. Maybe they have more experience with that. And that's what makes all of it feel so visceral and real, which is so cool. As far as my favorite character.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. Favorite character.
I love Sun. I think she's
awesome.
She's so cool.
Yeah, she's so cool.
Yeah,
she just doesn't take any shit.
Yeah, I can really, really relate to her as in a lot of ways.
She's so like deadpan. Like her face almost never makes any expression except like almost to roll her eyes sometimes when she knows like her brother is lying to her.
But it's kind of cute. Like I dig it. Anyway, yeah. And I kind of like that delivery. But is it Cepheus? Is that?
Yep.
So, like he's said. Now, actually, 2 actors have played Cepheus. He's a black character in Kenya,
Nairobi. He lives in sort of like the slums of Nairobi, and he drives this bus to make a living, but he obviously gets encounters a lot of issues. Like the original bus that he has is not very good, so it breaks down, and it also he encounters gangsters that hold him up when he's trying to just drive his route. They rob him. He tries to buy drugs for his mother for HIV, but he gets robbed for the drugs and the money. And so then he tries to get these drugs back because he loves his mother. He lives with his mother in a one-room shack. He sleeps on the couch. And he's trying to get these drugs for her, and he gets robbed. And so then he channels Son to help him fight off these guys and get his money and drugs back. And then he gets this reputation for being like Jean-Claude Van Damme because his bus is called the Van Damme.
So that's where I relate the most is that, and actually with literally Van Damme, I totally got that. I totally understood what the writers were trying to portray with because him and his best friend, they talk about the spirit of Jean-Claude, they almost literally worship Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I totally get that, when I was growing up, you kind of had these various action heroes, you had Stallone, you had Schwarzenegger, you had Seagal, you had, everybody, and you had Van Damme. And everybody kind of had their favorite, right? And my favorite, was always Van Damme. My favorite Van Damme movie. In fact, it's funny when we were watching the show, I said, I guarantee you he's going to watch Lionheart, because that's my favorite Van Damme movie. But between that and Black Eagle, those are my two favorites. And that's exactly what he was watching. And the speech he gives.
Said he would watch it whenever he needs courage. Exactly.
I could totally you have no idea how much I can relate to that. I'm yes. I love the line in Lionheart where, oh man, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. Just where Van Damme's wrong bet. It's all such great shit. But he describes he gets asked. I forget which one of the sensates asks Capheus. What's the big deal about Jean-Claude Van Damme? And it's ironic because he calls his van that he drives everybody around and he calls it the Van Damme. Because it's a van. He talks about how when he sees Van Damme do things, when he sees all these fictional characters do this stuff, he says it makes him feel I can't possibly reiterate the speech the way he gave it, but it was so beautiful, and I totally understand it, where he was just saying that it made him feel like he could do those things, when you see something so larger than life that it's something you can actually strive for and that you can do yourself, and all that. And you want to be careful, obviously, with where do you draw the line between reality and fantasy, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But I so understand that it's inspirational to see these characters, with these abilities and everything. Not in Sense8, but I'm saying, say with Van Damme or whatever. I definitely watched his movies for inspiration going up, just like I'd watch Rocky or Conan or something. So yeah, Capheus, I get it. He's becoming, so spoiler alerts, in the second season, he starts to become a politician, and I can't relate with that so much.
Yeah, he starts to run for office.
Yeah, but certainly the first season and the first half of the second season, I totally relate to that character.
Yeah.
I get it, even though I didn't grow up in anything remotely like the slums, I do understand his, I don't know, his morality, I guess you could say,
standing up to bullies,
his outlook and all this different stuff. I get that. So that, I don't know if he's my favorite, but I get him, I appreciate that. So yeah, just a super cool show. Nothing else quite like it out there. Yeah. And I think it is really one of the vanguards of a very new breed of show where everything is going to be global.
Yeah.
I don't want to use the word international because it says there needs to be nations, but international, I'll just say it. It's an international show that anybody could pick up on any market, anywhere around the world, and they could get it. They could understand, what's being shown to them. And of course, I love Straczynski. I say it all the time. Babylon 5 is the greatest show ever made, and Straczynski is just knocking it out of the park once again. It's just so impressive. I see his style as writing and it's fantastic. The Wachowskis are delivering once again, which in fact, there's some stuff in it that's a little they're almost taking word for word from their previous work. They had a great movie called Ninja Assassin that I love from about a decade ago. And there's been a couple lines where it's you pulled that right from Ninja Assassin, but that's fine because that's great work. That's the other cool thing too, is because you have these different cultures and these different abilities with everybody, you really can kind of everybody can have a favorite character, I think. somebody that they can really relate to, that's also kind of rare for a show to have that many main characters. It's fascinating exploration. What, you have any final thoughts on the show?
At first, I'll admit the first episode, if you're thinking of watching it.
Oh, this is great to bring up.
The first couple episodes, especially the first one, it's really confusing.
Very confusing.
You're like, what the fuck is going on here?
You've got to get past that first episode.
Yep.
Yeah. It's funny. I feel like I'm talking about Babylon 5. Sorry if I keep bringing that up, but it's by the same guy. I keep telling people, look, the first season of Babylon 5 is a little rough. You got to get, and I mean, that's a whole season. We're just asking for one episode with this one, but you got to get past that because it's the setup. Mm-hmm. And this is the same thing. The first episode's confusing as shit, but you got to get through it. And then I guarantee everything's going to pay off. Just like with Babylon 5, you get past the first season, everything will pay off. Don't worry. And yeah, that's a great point to bring up. Continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So just be aware of that. And also, I actually found the first season especially was very violent. And it was sexy, and it had a lot of sex.
Lots of sex in this show.
A lot of gay sex, which was amazing.
Yep.
And that was what really made me stick with it. But it was also quite violent.
Sure.
And I'm very sensitive to violence in movies and TV, and I don't like it. And so honestly, it was a little hard for me to get through it. And it was also like, I don't know, especially sort of the plot line where they had sort of like the medical torture aspect was very disturbing for me. And I just didn't like watching it. So I would say, like, don't watch it late at night before you go to bed.
Oh, yeah, you had one bad night with it.
It was like kind of scary at times. But then it got better. It got way better once you get through the first, the first half of the first season. And then to season 2, it's much better.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, that's another point I want to bring up is that the amount of sex in this and things that I never thought, full on orgies, the whole thing that I never thought I'd ever see on TV in my life. It is so exciting. In something that is being schlepped off to people as a television show. Obviously you can watch porn and you can see everything, but in something like this with a budget and all that, I never thought I'd see this sort of stuff. It's the most exciting display of sexuality since Spartacus, which is another show, very violent, but tons of sex, gay sex, the whole thing, and still next to Babylon 5, in my opinion, the greatest show ever made. Spartacus easily. Sense8, another couple seasons, it might be taking some top spots.
Yeah. So I think if they do another season of Sense8, I would love to see it season 3.
Yep.
I would like to get, I guess, a little bit of resolution with the BPO plotline.
Mm-hmm.
I would like them to sort of explain what was motivating sort of the dude that's been hunting them.
Whispers.
Yeah, Whispers, the guy that's sort of like hunting them down. And I'd like them to explain more about the history of the company and why they're going after Sense8s or whatever. And I would also like them to explain, to introduce maybe more characters that are Sense8s and have them explain more about what Sense8s are and how they work.
Yeah, I guess what I'd like to see in the future is, and Straczynski can do this, where he can make it so that the show, you could end the BPO plot line and then you could have something far, far deeper. And I'd love to see some ancient Egypt shit with, with Homo Sensorium.
Yeah.
And that would be pretty cool. But the one flaw I have with the show so far, now the third, or if there's a third season, if there's a fourth season, later seasons might change this fact. The one flaw I have, and this is a problem with a lot of modern shows for me, which is why I usually don't hold them in very high regard, is they're not rewatchable. I don't think I'd bother to watch it over again, unless they lay out some really crazy shit later on. This is the problem I have with the new Battlestar. One of the big problems I have with the new Battlestar Galactica, I have a lot of problems with it, is that I don't think it's a rewatchable show, especially when you see the ending. You're like, well, fuck, that's it. This is shit. And, so.
I think it might be. I think especially with the first part of the first season, when I was still getting to know the characters, I feel like I missed a lot of stuff that if I watched it again, it would make more sense the second time around.
Yeah. Okay. So let me rephrase. So yeah, right. Great point. So I could see watching it again, but not again. Like
Not again and again.
Right. There's show like Babylon 5, Star Trek, the original 79, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, I can go down a whole list of shows that I could watch them season after season over and over again, nonstop. And there's always something great, even when you know what's going to happen, even when you know what's coming. And that's the problem with a lot of, I think what it is modern television to keep people watching, to hook them, to keep their attention. You have to do like these crazy mysteries. The thing is that once you know the mystery, I don't know, it doesn't like it's kind of over, like what made the show great the first time was not knowing. And now that you know, I don't think, it could be fun to watch it again to see how did it get there and what are the little plot points maybe you missed. But after that, I don't see the point to watching it again. As to where like Spartacus is another one where I can watch that over and over again, even though I know what's happening.
Great.
Right. That's the thing is the action, the visuals, a lot of that is so solid. You can keep enjoying that, over and over again. And you can just watch it endlessly. As to where I think that's the only flaw I'd give Sense8. Or no, there's one other flaw, but the big flaw that I give it is that I don't think it's an endlessly rewatchable show. But that seems to be a problem with most modern television today. That it's not rewatchable. So the other problem is, and here's be very clear, spoiler alerts here. Well, I don't have to give away what's happening. It had one flaw in the first season, and it was the very last episode of the first season where they did something that just did not make sense. I'm sure there's a way they could explain it, but this didn't fly. There's a point where a character, actually it's Wolfie, is trying to get away and he's making a bomb. He's making like a Molotov cocktail.
He's in a shootout and he's trapped in a kitchen. Right. And the guys that he's shooting against are trying to break in.
Sure. Okay. So the Indian woman,
Kala,
she
comes to visit him.
She appears, which they have kind of a relationship. But anyway, she appears and she helps him because she works at a pharmaceutical company. She's a chemist.
So she knows how to make a bomb.
Right. She starts making it, and how she lights it is she rips off part of her apron, and he's wearing leather. Like, he's not really wearing clothing that could be ripped.
Yeah.
So she starts ripping off part of her apron to use it as the wick for the bomb or for the cocktail. And that's where I was like, oh, you screwed up, because like, yeah, okay, she's mentally there, but they're not physically there, and so that was the one thing. And I had heard somebody else, Steve Gibson, actually, of the Security Now podcast. He had said that, he said there's one flaw in the last episode. And as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, that's what Steve was talking about. Because he wouldn't tell you what it was. But I was like, no, that has to be what he meant. So that was a little bit of a flaw as far as like interior consistency, within the show. But otherwise, perfect show. I agree. It's fantastic. So anyway.
There's some loose ends that I wish they would tie up. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of loose ends. Yeah. Like, what happened to that? There was like this sort of like drug deal gone bad with Riley in the first season where she was DJing and she goes back to this guy's apartment.
Oh, that dude, yeah.
There's like a couple guys that end up dead and she ends up with this money and drugs and she's like, I don't know what the fuck to do with it. So she gives it to like this blind guy playing the piano in the subway and throws the drugs in the trash. And then later he comes out, one of the guys comes after her and says, I want my money and drugs. And she's like, I don't have it. And he tries to kill her. And
it does seem like that was forgotten.
Her escape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, the end of season 1 is like Riley gets captured and Will like saves her. He like goes to Iceland and he infiltrates BPO and
please do still watch the show, folks. But, yeah.
Oh, I know we're spoiling everything.
Keep going.
But then like the whole second season is them just like shooting up heroin together and like hiding out. And
no, I know that holds
it's
no
just
appeal
dumb.
To me
like
either.
it's just like they're literally just doing heroin the whole time, and that just like dumb what they did with that.
Yeah, the advantage, of course, having 8 lead characters is that you've got the other 6 people to like do tremendous stories with, and they do. You know, like they do amazing stuff.
I like the hacker aspect too with Nomi and how she has that friend who's a hacker, and he like gets all this. Yeah, they can almost do anything.
You know, I got to give them credit, and this is again more of that realism that the Wachowskis and Straczynski brings. Like the hacking, quote unquote, looks pretty legit, fairly legit.
Something that you could do anyway.
Yeah, like, I mean, because a lot of times you have to do what's called cinemagenic, where you have to make something look interesting for people to watch.
Like in that movie Hackers, where they just have the green lines of code like flying up the screen.
Well, yeah.
That's supposed to be hacking.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like hacking as a GUI or something. That's right. I've reviewed Hackers long ago on this show. I love that movie, but the hacking that's on display is absolutely absolute bullshit, like just straight bull. Like it looks nothing like that. Not saying that I should know, but yeah, like, I mean, a lot of the stuff going on is command line. I mean, they really did a very legit job, I think, as far as that goes. So yeah, that's a cool part too. There's so much to love about the show. There's something for, in my opinion, everybody to love.
Yeah.
I will tell you though, if you're of like a conservative mindset, you're in for a mind fuck. I mean, because and that's the only reason I can imagine why you don't hear most people talking about it, is because I think people like see it, like in the very first episode, you have, you've got a black woman stooping a transgender woman. I mean, and I think people probably saw that. And I mean, you even see, you see
a rainbow strap-on being flung to the floor.
You see a wet strap-on getting tossed across the room. I mean, and I think a lot of people saw that and said, fuck this, and like, I'm not going to watch this. And what a pity, because it's actually a great show, even beyond all of that, though that's part of what, in my opinion, makes it great. So anyway, well, I think we've done enough cultural subversion this week on Sovryn Tech. In fact, I didn't expect Sense8 to be so relative to some of the stories that we talked about, but it was.
Yeah. It's all connected.
It's all connected, man. We're all Sense8s. So,
sometimes I feel like we have a connection like that.
Speaking of Zuckerberg, let's bring it full circle. How we open the show. Zuckerberg has said that telepathy is really the ultimate goal of communication. And now the way he wants to do it, I think, is horseshit, but whatever. I mean, like, at least I kind of agree. I get where he's coming from. In fact, one of the great points that the show Sense8 brings up is there's where the guy is kind of talking from an academic perspective, saying, what if, and this isn't even a new idea in science fiction, what if humans didn't, like, what if language wasn't the original way that humans communicated? What if there's other ways and language just ended up winning out, as being the way, but maybe it's not even the most preferable way. It just happened to be the way that kind of won out because it allowed for lies and secrecy and all this different stuff. I mean, very interesting concepts. There's a great book called, I think the title of it was Cro-Magnon, from the 90s. It's fiction, where in Afghanistan, people find in Afghanistan, they actually find Neanderthals still alive. And they find out that Neanderthals actually do communicate with telepathy. I mean, it's a fiction book, but it's a lot of fun. But it's from the 90s, way before Sense8. But kind of speaks to this idea that maybe, other types of humans communicated in completely different ways.
Yeah, and also in the show was the idea that those humans who had telepathy were like hunted down and trying to extinct them.
Right.
By the Homo sapiens.
Yeah, because Homo sapiens hate anything that's different. Yeah, I mean, but I agree. I'd love that ability. I remember in the show SG-1 and Stargate SG-1, there's the Tolan, I think their names were, and it was like this advanced human species, and they had a device that would actually allow you to not transmit your thoughts, but transmit your emotions. And like, there's a scene where the one of the lead guys for the Tolan, like, does it with touches the device and then has the character of Samantha Carter touch the device, and she feels how he feels about her. And I just think it's an incredibly romantic and sexy scene. And I was always like, man, I want a device like that to be able to just openly share, like, your empathy or your emotions, with somebody, how you really love them. I think that'd be powerful. Because words can't communicate. I mean, they just can't. They can't communicate everything, and I think that's another aspect they're touching on. I'm glad that there's a lot of this happening in Asia, because, I talk about this a lot. Like in Japan, there's the concept of invention, which is that, there are things that words do not communicate that everything else does. It's not just body language. Like, there's so much that goes into it. It kind of touches on that too, which I think is cool. So anyway, great show. Is that
awesome show?
Awesome show. Yeah, total.
I hope we didn't bore everybody who hasn't seen it yet with our reviews, but I feel like maybe only the people who have seen it will know what we're talking about. But
well, a lot of people have asked me to talk about it. So I'm guessing a lot of listeners have seen it. And so then there you go. You got our review. It's great. I really don't have, other than the two problems, the rewatchability and that one little flaw at the end of the first episode, or at the end of the first season. No flaws. So awesome show. Check it out. Stephanie, of course, people can find you at smvoice.info.
That's right. And also sexandsciencehour.com.
Which will be starting up in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's our podcast.
Yes, yeah, that we do together. So this is kind of a sex and science hour. Maybe I'll even make that part of the title. We'll see. So anyway, of course, if you want to donate to the show, sovryntech.com. If you want to become a patron, get access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content, new content that comes out every week. Don't forget that on Sunday, which is probably when people, it's going to be Sunday by the time I post it. May 28th. 4 p.m. Eastern, we're going to do a live Q&A hangout. So anyway, I will see all of you on the other side. Stephanie, thank you for being on the show. Woo!
Carpe weekend.
Wow, there it is. She said it. All right, see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. And connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.